The slap never landed. Instead, Rivermont General's CEO hit the floor, hard, his wrist locked behind his back by the one person everyone called weak. Marcus Hale had terrorized this hospital for 6 years. Nurses flinched when he entered rooms. Doctors rewrote diagnoses at his command. But the quiet new nurse standing over him now, her face absolutely calm, had spent 8 years keeping soldiers alive under enemy fire. Nobody knew Sarah Reeves had walked through hell wearing combat boots. They were about to find out. Before we dive in, I need your help spreading these stories. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far these journeys travel. Your engagement means everything. Now, let's begin. The fluorescent lights inside Rivermont General Hospital hummed with the same relentless frequency they'd maintained for 23 years. Sarah Reeves noticed them first, not because they flickered, but because nobody else seemed to hear them anymore. The staff had gone numb to everything, the lights, the mold creeping along the third-floor baseboards, the way people's voices dropped to whispers whenever Marcus Hale's office door opened. She'd been here 4 days, long enough to understand she'd made a mistake. "You're the transfer from county?" A nurse roughly Sarah's age, mid-30s, blonde, exhausted, leaned against the medication cart. Her name tag read Jennifer Mills, RN. "Word of advice, don't make eye contact, don't question orders, and for the love of everything, don't get noticed." Sarah adjusted her scrubs. "Noticed by who?" Jennifer's laugh came out bitter. "You'll figure it out." She did. 40 minutes later, Marcus Hale walked into the second-floor nursing station like he owned not just the hospital, but the air inside it. He was tall, mid-40s, expensive suit straining slightly across his shoulders. His face carried the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. He didn't greet anyone, just pointed at a young nurse near the medication refrigerator. "You, Danya, where's the incident report from yesterday?" The nurse, Danya Martinez, according to her badge, froze. I filed it this morning. The system was—" "I didn't ask about the system." Hale's voice dropped. "I asked where it is." "It's in the database, under patient safety incidents. I can pull it up right—" "You filed it wrong." Hale stepped closer, close enough that Danya had to tilt her head back. "You made the hospital look incompetent. Again." Around them, the nursing station went silent. Phones still rang, monitors still beeped, but every conversation died mid-sentence. Sarah watched from the corner workstation. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. Danya's hands trembled. "I followed protocol exactly. If there's an error, I can—" "Protocol." Hale's lip curled. "You think protocol protects you?" "I think—" The slap came fast, not hard enough to knock Danya down, just enough to snap her head sideways and leave a red mark blooming across her cheek. The room inhaled collectively. Danya touched her face. Her eyes filled but didn't spill over. Hale straightened his cuffs. "Rewrite it by end of shift, or you're gone." He walked out. Nobody moved. Sarah counted to 10, then stood and crossed to Danya, who was now sitting in a rolling chair, staring at nothing. "Hey." Sarah crouched down. "You all right?" Danya nodded. Didn't speak. Jennifer appeared with an ice pack. "Standard Tuesday," she muttered, handing it over. "Last month he threw a chart at Rodriguez. A month before that, he screamed at Chen until she had a panic attack in the supply closet." "Nobody reports this?" Sarah asked. Jennifer's laugh was sharp. "To who? His best friend runs HR. The board? Half of them owe him favors. We report, we get fired. Or worse, he makes sure no hospital in 3 states will hire us." Sarah looked back toward the hallway where Hale had disappeared. Something cold settled in her chest. Something familiar. She'd felt it before, in places where power went unchecked and fear became structure. "How long's this been going on?" 6 years, another nurse said from across the station. Older woman, gray hair pulled back tight. "Since he took over. Used to be decent here. Then Hale showed up and turned it into his personal kingdom." Sarah straightened. 6 years. Some of us tried fighting back early on. The older nurse, Margaret, her badge read, shook her head. "Lawyers, you union reps, nothing stuck. He's too connected, too smart about leaving no paper trail."
People have left, Jennifer added. Good people. Couldn't take it anymore. But most of us can't afford to quit. Student loans, mortgages, kids. She looked at Sarah directly. You've still got time to transfer out before he really notices you. Sarah didn't respond. That night, lying in her small apartment 3 miles from Rivermont General, she stared at the ceiling and tried to remember why she'd chosen nursing in the first place. The answer came back clear. Because people needed help, and you were trained to give it. She'd served 8 years as an Army combat medic. 3 tours. Field hospitals where the nearest backup was 30 miles through hostile territory, and the morphine ran out every other week. She'd held soldiers together with pressure bandages and prayers, made calls that still woke her up at 3 a.m., learned to function on 2 hours of sleep and cold MREs. She'd left the military hoping civilian life would feel easier, quieter, safe. Instead, she'd walked into a different kind of war zone. The next morning, Sarah arrived early, reviewed patient charts, organized her station, kept her head down. Marcus Hale found her anyway. Reeves. His voice cut across the nursing station at 9:47 a.m. My office, now. Jennifer shot her a look. Good luck. Sarah followed him down the administrative corridor. His office sat at the end, large windows, dark wood furniture, framed photos of Hale shaking hands with politicians and donors. He didn't invite her to sit. You're the county transfer. Hale leaned against his desk, arms crossed. Mediocre performance reviews. No specializations, no advanced certifications. He paused. Why should I keep you? Sarah met his eyes. Because I do my job. Your job, Hale smiled. Your job is whatever I say it is. You understand that? I understand patient care. Patient care. He laughed. That's not how hospitals work anymore. Hospitals work on efficiency, metrics, liability management, and right now you're an unknown variable. Sarah said nothing. Here's how this goes, Hale continued. You follow orders, you don't question, you don't make waves, you definitely don't become friendly with staff who have attitudes. He pushed off the desk. Do that, and maybe you keep this job. Otherwise, I'll have your termination paperwork done by lunch. He waited for her to flinch. She didn't. Understood, Sarah said quietly. Hale studied her, then waved dismissively. Get back to work. Sarah walked out, closed the door, stood in the empty corridor for 5 seconds while her pulse returned to normal. She'd been threatened by people far more dangerous than Marcus Hale. The difference was those people carried guns. Over the following 2 weeks, Sarah watched the hospital's ecosystem reveal itself. Hale ruled through random terror. Some days he'd walk through smiling, almost charming. Other days he'd explode over nothing, a misfiled form, a patient complaint, a nurse taking an extra 2 minutes at lunch. Nobody could predict it. So everyone lived in constant tension. Doctors deferred to him even on medical decisions. Sarah watched an ER physician change a diagnosis mid-exam because Hale questioned it from the doorway. The physician was right the first time. The patient deteriorated overnight. Hale buried the incident report. Staff turnover was brutal. New hires lasted weeks before quitting or getting fired. The ones who stayed developed a defeated posture, shoulders hunched, voices soft, eyes down. Sarah kept working, kept watching. She noticed patterns. Hale targeted specific people. Those who spoke up, those who showed confidence, those who reminded him he wasn't actually a doctor. He'd isolate them, spread rumors, overload them with impossible tasks, then fire them for performance issues. Classic intimidation tactics. She'd seen interrogators use similar methods overseas. One afternoon, Sarah found Jennifer crying in the stairwell. He's cutting my shifts, Jennifer said, wiping her eyes roughly. Says budget concerns. But he just hired his nephew's girlfriend for my hours. Sarah sat beside her. You can't fight this? Fight with what? Jennifer's voice cracked. I've got $40,000 in student debt and a kid who needs braces. I complain. I'm gone. I'm gone. I lose everything. She looked at Sarah. You don't have kids. You don't get it. Sarah did get it. She'd watched soldiers stay in terrible situations because leaving meant losing benefits, losing structure, losing identity. Fear was a cage that locked from the inside. I'm not telling you to fight, Sarah said carefully, but you don't have to carry this alone. Jennifer shook her head. Everyone here carries it alone.
That's how he wins. Sarah left the stairwell and went back to work, but Jennifer's words stayed with her. That's how he wins.
By week 3, Hale started targeting Sarah directly. First came the schedule changes. He'd assign her to double shifts, then cancel them last minute, or schedule her for overnight coverage with 4 hours' notice. Then came the write-ups. Uniform violation, tardiness, improper documentation, all fabricated, all building a paper trail. Sarah recognized the strategy immediately. He was manufacturing cause for termination. She started documenting everything. Dates, times, witnesses. She kept copies off-site. Old habits from intelligence briefings. Meanwhile, the hospital itself was deteriorating. Equipment broke and didn't get replaced. Staffing dropped to dangerous levels. Patients waited hours in the ER. Infection rates climbed. Hale didn't care. His metrics were financial. As long as revenue stayed up and lawsuits stayed buried, he considered it success. Sarah was restocking a crash cart when Margaret approached. "He's going to fire you," Margaret said bluntly. "Probably this week. That's his pattern. 3 weeks of harassment, then termination." "I know." Margaret blinked. "You know?" "I've seen this before." Sarah closed the crash cart. "Just in different uniforms." "Then why stay?" Sarah looked around the nursing station, at the exhausted faces, the defeated postures, the people who'd stopped expecting anything to change. "Because someone has to," she said simply. Margaret stared at her. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Danya's face after the slap, Jennifer's tears in the stairwell, the ER physician who'd compromised his judgment because speaking up felt too dangerous. She thought about the soldiers she'd served with, the ones who'd survived by watching each other's backs, the ones who died because someone in command cared more about image than reality. Marcus Hale was that commander, and Rivermont General was bleeding out under his leadership. The crisis came on a Thursday morning. Sarah was reviewing medication orders when alarms started blaring from the lobby, multiple voices shouting, running footsteps. She grabbed the emergency kit and sprinted toward the sound. The lobby was chaos. A man, mid-60s, gray beard, wearing a plaid jacket, lay on the tile floor. His wife knelt beside him, screaming. Blood pressure cuff on the information desk, shattered coffee cup near the entrance. Sarah dropped beside him, checked pulse, checked breathing, cardiac arrest. "Call code blue," she snapped at the receptionist, then to the wife. "Ma'am, I need you to step back." The woman didn't move. "He just collapsed. We were waiting for his appointment and he just—" "Step back, now." The wife stumbled backward. Sarah started compressions, hard, fast, exactly the rhythm drilled into her during field training. 2 nurses arrived with the crash cart. "Get the AED ready," Sarah ordered, "and someone check if the ER's clear." "They're slammed," one nurse said. "Car accident came in 10 minutes ago. Both trauma bays occupied." "Then we stabilize here." Sarah didn't stop compressions. "A ED now." The nurse fumbled with the defibrillator pads. Sarah counted compressions. 28, 29, 30. "Clear." She leaned back, the AED analyzed. No shock advised. "Resume compression," Sarah said, and did. The lobby was filling with people, staff, patients, bystanders with phones out. Sarah blocked them all out, focused on the man beneath her hands, his ribs flexing with each compression, the absence of breath, the silence where a heartbeat should be. She'd done this before, in tents, in trucks, in dirt with gunfire overhead, but never with an audience this large. "Switch," she said after 2 minutes. Margaret took over compressions. Sarah checked the man's airway, grabbed the bag valve mask. "A ED ready," the other nurse said. "Clear." The shock delivered. The man's body jerked. Sarah checked pulse. Nothing. "Resume." Margaret started compressions again. Sarah attached oxygen, checked pupil response. The man was crashing hard. No prior medical history visible. No medication list. Just a body failing fast. 4 minutes in, Marcus Hale arrived. He pushed through the crowd like a man late to his own show. "What the hell is this?" His voice boomed across the lobby. "Who authorized emergency procedures in a public space?" Sarah didn't look up. "He arrested. We're stabilizing." "This is a liability nightmare." Hale grabbed her shoulder. "Stop."
Sarah shrugged him off. We're working. I'm the CEO. I'm ordering you to... Then order an ambulance, Sarah interrupted, because if we stop, he dies. The lobby went silent except for the AED's metronome beeping and Margaret's grunts with each compression. Hale's face flushed red. You don't give me orders.
Sarah finally looked at him. Her expression was flat. No anger, no fear, just cold assessment. Your choice, she said. Let us work, or explain to his wife why you prioritized optics over her husband's life. For 3 seconds, Hale stared at her. Then someone in the crowd started recording. Hale stepped back. Sarah returned to the patient. AED ready. Clear. Another shock. Check pulse. This time, faint, but there. We've got rhythm, Sarah said, bag valve mask back in place. Oxygen at 15 liters. Get transport ready. The ER team arrived with a gurney. They transferred the patient smoothly. His wife followed, crying but quieter now. The lobby slowly cleared. Sarah stood, her knees aching from the tile floor, blood pressure cuff still on the information desk, shattered coffee cup still near the entrance. Margaret touched her arm. That was incredible. That was protocol. No. Margaret shook her head. That was command. Where'd you learn that? Sarah didn't answer, just started cleaning up the equipment. But Margaret was already putting pieces together. The way Sarah moved, the tone she used, the absolute certainty in crisis. You're military, Margaret said quietly. Sarah paused, then nodded once. How long? 8 years. Medic. Margaret's eyes widened. Combat? 3 tours. Jesus. Margaret looked at the lobby, then back at Sarah. Hale has no idea who he's dealing with, does he? Sarah packed the AED away. Doesn't matter. He's still going to fire me. After that? After saving a man's life in his lobby? Especially after that. Sarah stood. I embarrassed him, in public, on camera. That's the one thing Marcus Hale doesn't forgive. She was right. 2 hours later, Sarah was called back to Hale's office. This time, he wasn't alone. Victoria Green sat in one of the leather chairs. Head of Human Resources, 50-something, wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of smile that never reached her eyes. She held a manila folder. Miss Reeves. Hale didn't offer a seat. Your performance since joining Rivermont General has been consistently substandard. Multiple violations. Multiple complaints. Sarah knew where this was going. Today's incident, Hale continued, represents a serious breach of protocol. You performed emergency medical procedures in an unsecured public area without authorization, creating massive liability exposure for this institution. I saved a man's life. You created a spectacle. Hale leaned forward. And more importantly, you defied direct orders from hospital administration. Me. Victoria opened the folder. We've documented 19 separate incidents of insubordination, poor judgment, and policy violations over the past 3 weeks. This isn't a termination. It's a pattern. Sarah looked at the folder. The manufactured paper trail. Classic. You're fired, Hale said. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Sarah stood silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Understood. Hale blinked. He'd expected argument, tears, pleading. Instead, Sarah just turned toward the door. Wait, Hale's voice had an edge. That's it? No defense? No fighting back? Sarah looked over her shoulder. Would it matter? No. Then why waste the energy? She walked out. Victoria followed her to collect her badge and personal items. 2 security guards flanked them through the corridors. Staff watched from doorways, faces carefully neutral. Jennifer caught her near the exit. Sarah, I'm sorry. This is not your fault. Sarah kept walking. Where will you go? Somewhere that doesn't confuse authority with leadership. At the main entrance, Victoria took her badge. The security guards waited until Sarah walked through the automatic doors. She stood in the parking lot. Late afternoon sun, distant traffic noise, hospital looming behind her. She'd been fired before, knew how it felt. But this time was different. This time she wasn't the one walking away defeated. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts, found the number she'd saved 3 years ago after her discharge. Major Rita Dawson, military advocate, now worked with veteran support networks. Sarah typed a message. Need advice. got into something complicated. The response came back in 30 seconds. Call me. Sarah got in her car, started driving, didn't look back at Rivermont General. She'd learned one thing in 8 years of military service. Battles weren't won in the first engagement. They were won by the side that planned better, adapted faster, and understood the terrain. Marcus Hale had just made his first tactical error. He thought firing her ended the problem. Instead, he'd freed her to actually fight. Rita Dawson answered on the second ring. Reeves, been a while. Sarah pulled into a coffee shop parking lot 2 miles from the hospital, engine still running. I need to know how to fight someone who controls the entire system. Silence. Then, what kind of system? Hospital, CEO with connections, HR in his pocket, staff too scared to speak up. I just got fired for doing my job. Rita exhaled slowly. You walked into a hostile command structure, essentially, and you engaged anyway. A patient was dying. Of course he was. Rita's tone held something between exasperation and respect. All right, talk me through it from the beginning. Sarah did. 15 minutes. Everything from Danya's slap to the lobby cardiac arrest to the termination meeting. Rita didn't interrupt once. When Sarah finished, Rita was quiet for several seconds. You're sure about this? Rita finally asked. Because what you're describing isn't a workplace dispute. It's institutional abuse. Taking that on means legal battles, public exposure, possible retaliation. It'll consume months of your life. I know. And you're doing it anyway. People are getting hurt every day. Someone has to. Rita laughed softly. Still the same stubborn medic who walked into a firefight to extract wounded. Fine. Here's what you need. Documentation, witnesses willing to testify, and legal representation that specializes in employment law and workplace safety violations. You have any of that? I have 3 weeks of notes, dates, times, incidents. Nothing official. It's a start? Rita paused. I know someone. Labor attorney in Kingsport. Vanessa Cole. She handles cases like this. Power abuse, wrongful termination, hostile work environment. Doesn't back down from connected defendants. I'll send you her contact. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This gets ugly before it gets better. And Reeves? Rita's voice sharpened. Watch your back. Men like this CEO don't lose quietly. The call ended. Sarah sat in her car watching people move through the coffee shop. Normal lives, normal problems. She could walk away right now, find another hospital, start over somewhere Marcus Hale's influence didn't reach. But she kept seeing Danya's face after the slap, Jennifer crying in the stairwell, the ER physician changing a diagnosis because fear overruled medical judgment. Sarah pulled up her messages. Rita had already sent Vanessa Cole's number. She made the call. Vanessa Cole's office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted factory building in downtown Kingsport. Exposed brick, tall windows, bookshelves crammed with legal volumes. Vanessa herself was late 40s, black, gray, threading through her natural hair, wearing a blazer over a concert t-shirt. Rita speaks highly of you, Vanessa said, gesturing Sarah toward a chair. Said you're military, combat medic. 8 years. And you lasted 3 weeks at Rivermont General before Hale fired you. About that. Vanessa opened a yellow legal pad. Tell me everything. Don't editorialize, just facts. Sarah walked her through it again. This time Vanessa took notes, occasionally stopping her to clarify details or ask for specific names. When Sarah finished, Vanessa leaned back. This is textbook hostile work environment with elements of criminal assault. The slap you witnessed alone is battery. The termination reeks of retaliation. But here's the problem. He's connected. Extremely. Hale's donated to 3 city council members, sits on the board of 2 community foundations, and his lawyer is Gerald Roth. Sarah didn't recognize the name. Roth specializes in burying cases like yours, Vanessa explained. He'll drown us in motions, drag discovery out for years, and bankrupt you with legal fees before we ever reach trial. That's his strategy. Attrition. So we can't win. I didn't say that. Vanessa tapped her pen against the pad. I said it'll be difficult. We need something that makes this case too expensive for him to fight. Something public. Something that shifts leverage. Like what? Witnesses. Multiple staff members willing to go on record about Hale's behavior. Pattern evidence spanning years. If we can show this isn't isolated, if we can prove systemic abuse, then we're not just fighting wrongful termination. We're fighting institutional negligence. That changes everything. Sarah thought about Jennifer, Margaret, the dozens of staff members who'd watched Hale's reign unfold. They won't talk, she said. They're terrified of losing their jobs. Then we need to make them more afraid of staying silent. Vanessa stood and walked to the window. Fear works both ways. Right now they fear Hale because he controls their present. We need to show them he's about to lose control of their future. How? Vanessa turned back. We file the suit, make it public, force media attention. Once it's out there, other victims feel safer coming forward. Safety in numbers. Sarah hesitated. That puts a target on everyone's back. It does, which is why I need to know you're committed. Because once we file, there's no walking away. You'll be the face of this case. Your name in newspapers, your past examined, your credibility questioned. Hale will come after you with everything. Sarah met her eyes. I've been shot at by people who actually knew how to kill. Marcus Hale doesn't scare me. Vanessa smiled slightly. Then let's ruin his day. They spent the next 2 hours building the case foundation. Sarah provided every detail she could remember. Specific incidents, witness names, policy violations. Vanessa recorded it all, occasionally pausing to verify facts or push for clearer timelines. This termination meeting, Vanessa said. Victoria Green was present? Yes. She had a folder, claimed 19 incidents. But you never received written warnings for any of them? No, just verbal. Sudden schedule changes, things that vanished from official records. Vanessa made a note. That's retaliation documentation. They built a fake paper trail to justify predetermined termination. Sloppy work. She looked up. Which means they're overconfident. Good. By the time Sarah left, she had a legal strategy and a timeline. Vanessa would draft the complaint over the weekend. They'd file Monday morning. Media outreach would follow. Sarah drove home as evening settled over Kingsport. Her apartment felt emptier than usual. No work tomorrow. No schedule. No purpose except the waiting. She heated leftover takeout and opened her laptop. Started writing everything down. Every incident she'd witnessed. Every conversation. Every moment where fear had replaced professionalism. She wrote for 3 hours. The document reached 40 pages. Her phone buzzed around 10 p.m. Unknown number. Sarah almost didn't answer, then recognized the area code. Local. Hello? Sarah, it's Margaret from Rivermont. Sarah sat up straighter. Margaret? How'd you get my number? Jennifer had it. Listen, I don't have long. Margaret's voice was hushed. Hale called an emergency staff meeting tomorrow morning. He's telling everyone you were terminated for gross negligence. Says you nearly killed that patient in the lobby. He's spinning the whole thing. Sarah's jaw tightened. Of course he is. People are believing it, or at least pretending to. Nobody wants to be next. Margaret paused. But some of us remember what actually happened. We were there. Margaret, I'm not asking you to do anything. I just thought you should know. He's trying to bury this before it becomes something bigger. It's already bigger. Silence. Then, what do you mean? Sarah considered how much to say. I filed a lawsuit. It goes public Monday. Margaret's breath caught. You're serious? Completely. Sarah, he'll destroy you. He'll try. Another pause. What do you need from us? The truth. On record. But I won't ask anyone to risk their job. Some things are bigger than jobs. Margaret's voice steadied. I've worked at Rivermont for 16 years, watched it turn from a decent hospital into a nightmare. If you're actually fighting back, you should know you're not alone. Margaret, if you go on record, I'm 62 years old, my kids are grown, my mortgage is paid, what's Hale going to do, ruin my retirement? She laughed bitterly. I'm tired of being scared. Tell me what you need. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. Can you get others to talk to my attorney? Confidentially at first, just to build the case. I can try. No promises. That's all I'm asking. They hung up. Sarah sat in the dark apartment staring at her phone. One witness, maybe more. It was a crack in Hale's armor, small but real. The weekend passed slowly. Sarah ran errands, tried to distract herself with normal life. It didn't work. Her mind kept circling back to Rivermont General, to the staff still working under Hale's shadow, to the patients receiving care in an institution rotted from the inside. Saturday evening, Jennifer called. "Margaret told me about the lawsuit." Jennifer's voice was tight. "Is it real?" "Yes." "Jesus. Sarah, do you know what you're doing? Trying to fix something broken." Jennifer was quiet, then, "He fired 2 more people Friday afternoon, claimed budget cuts, but everyone knows why. He's cleaning house, getting rid of anyone who might support you." Sarah closed her eyes. "Who?" "Danya and Alex from radiology. Both gone." Danya, the young nurse who'd been slapped, now unemployed because Hale was tying up loose ends. "How's she doing?" Sarah asked. "How do you think?" "She's terrified. Bills to pay. No job. Hale's already spreading rumors that she was stealing medications. It's not true, but nobody's going to hire her now." Sarah's hands clenched. "Give me her number." "Why?" "Because she's part of this case, whether she wants to be or not. And she deserves to know she has options." Jennifer sent the contact info. Sarah called immediately. Danya answered on the 5th ring. Her voice sounded hollow. "Hello? Danya, this is Sarah Reeves. We work together." "I know who you are. You're the reason I got fired." The accusation hit hard. "That's what Hale told you?" "He didn't have to. You embarrassed him. Then he fired you. Then he came after everyone who didn't immediately condemn you. So yeah, I'm blaming you." Sarah forced herself to stay calm. "I'm sorry you lost your job, but I'm not the one who fired you. Marcus Hale did, and he's been firing people for years. We just gave him an excuse this time." "Easy for you to say. You're probably already lined up somewhere else. I'm 26 with a termination on my record and a CEO spreading lies about me. I'm filing a lawsuit against him. Wrongful termination, hostile workplace, assault." Silence. "You're joking," Danya finally said. "I'm not. And you're a witness. You were there when he slapped you. That's battery, criminal and civil." "I'm not testifying." "I'm not asking you to, not yet. But you should know you have legal options. He can't just destroy your reputation and walk away." Danya's voice cracked. "He already did. And suing him means more attention, more judgment. I just want this to be over." "It won't be over, not for you. Not for the next person he targets. Hale doesn't stop until someone makes him. Then find someone else. I can't do this." The line went dead. Sarah sat holding the phone. She understood Danya's fear, understood the impulse to retreat, but understanding didn't change reality. Hale was counting on everyone staying silent. That's how men like him survived. Sunday afternoon, Sarah met Vanessa at her office again. They reviewed the complaint draft, 43 pages documenting wrongful termination, retaliation, hostile work environment, and a pattern of abuse spanning 6 years. "It's strong," Vanessa said, "but we need more witnesses. Margaret's a start, but one person isn't a pattern." "What about the lobby incident? Multiple people saw that. Saw you save a man's life?" "That helps your credibility but doesn't prove systemic abuse. We need staff willing to detail specific incidents over time." Vanessa leaned forward. "I know this is hard, but cases like this live or die on witness testimony. Without it, we're just your word against Hale's institutional power." Sarah's phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She answered. "Hello? Is this Sarah Reeves?" Male voice, older, uncertain. "Yes, who's this?" "Dr. Paul Hendricks. I was an ER physician at Rivermont General. Worked there for 11 years before I resigned last month." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Go on?" "Margaret reached out. Said you were building a case against Marcus Hale. I want to help." Vanessa was watching her intently. "Can you hold for a moment, Dr. Hendricks?" Sarah put the call on speaker. "I'm here with my attorney, Vanessa Cole. You're on speaker now. Is that all right?" "Yes." "Fine." Hendricks cleared his throat. "I left Rivermont because I couldn't stomach what it had become. Hale interfered with medical decisions constantly, threatened staff who questioned him. I watched patient care deteriorate because everyone was more afraid of him than focused on doing their jobs." Vanessa grabbed her notepad. "Dr. Hendricks, can you provide specific examples?" "Dozens. Last year, Hale ordered me to discharge a patient against my medical judgment because the insurance authorization was delayed. The patient collapsed at home 6 hours later, had to be readmitted through another hospital, could have died. His voice shook with anger. That's not medicine. That's liability management dressed up as healthcare. Would you be willing to provide a formal statement? Vanessa asked. I already left. He can't touch me anymore, so yes, whatever you need. They spent an hour on the phone. Hendricks detailed incident after incident, patients endangered, staff threatened, corners cut for profit. By the end, Vanessa had filled 12 pages of notes. After he hung up, Vanessa looked at Sarah. That's a pattern, she said quietly. A physician willing to testify about medical negligence? That changes the entire scope of this case. We file tomorrow? We file tomorrow. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Sarah dressed carefully. Slacks, blazer, professional but not defensive. She met Vanessa at the courthouse at 8 a.m. The filing process was mechanical. Forms, signatures, filing fees. An administrative clerk who barely looked up from her computer. But when they walked out of the building, Vanessa handed Sarah a folder. Press release, she said. Goes out in an hour. Local news outlets. Healthcare industry publications. We're making this loud. Sarah opened the folder. Read the headline. Former nurse sues Rivermont General CEO Marcus Hale for wrongful termination and systemic workplace abuse. How long before he knows? Sarah asked. He probably already knows. Courthouse filings are public record. His lawyers monitor them. Vanessa checked her watch. I'd guess we have maybe 2 hours before the counteroffensive starts. It took 90 minutes. Sarah was in her apartment when her phone lit up with texts.
Jennifer, holy shit, it's everywhere. Local news picked it up. Hospitals in chaos. Margaret, Hale just held an emergency meeting. He's furious, says it's all lies. Unknown number. You just signed your own death warrant. Hope it was worth it. Sarah blocked the unknown number. Then her phone rang. Vanessa. We've got a problem, Vanessa said immediately. Hale's lawyers filed a motion for sanctions. They're claiming our lawsuit is frivolous and defamatory. They want it dismissed and they want you to pay their legal fees. Can they do that? They can try. It's intimidation. Standard playbook. Hit back hard and fast, make you regret filing. Vanessa's tone hardened. But here's the good news. The press release is getting traction. 2 TV stations want interviews, and my phone's been ringing all morning with former Rivermont employees wanting to talk. How many? 7 so far. All with stories. All willing to provide statements. Sarah felt something shift. He's losing control. He's losing the narrative. That's different. Control comes later. Vanessa paused. I need you to be ready for what comes next. Hale's going to attack your credibility, your past, your service record, anything he can weaponize. Let him try. Sarah, I'm serious. Men like this don't fight fair. Neither do I. That afternoon, the first news segment aired. Sarah watched it on her laptop. Local station. 2-minute package. Her lawsuit described briefly. Stock footage of Rivermont General. A brief statement from the hospital's PR firm denying all allegations. Then the anchor said something that made Sarah's breath catch. We reached out to former staff members. Several agreed to speak anonymously about conditions inside the hospital. Cut to a silhouetted figure, voice distorted. He rules through fear, everyone knows it, but speaking up means losing everything. Another silhouette. I watched colleagues have breakdowns, quit with no backup plan. One nurse told me she considered suicide because the stress was unbearable. The segment ended with the anchor promising to follow the story as it developed. Sarah's phone exploded. Texts from people she barely knew, former coworkers, nursing school classmates. Everyone had seen it. Then a text from Margaret. We're not alone anymore. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept refreshing news sites, watching the story spread. Regional outlets picked it up. Healthcare blogs, social media threads where current and former hospital employees shared their own experiences. The crack in Hale's armor was widening. Tuesday morning, Vanessa called early. We need to meet, now. Sarah drove to the office, found Vanessa pacing, laptop open, phone on speaker. 3 more witnesses came forward overnight, Vanessa said. All former employees, all with documentation. But here's the big one. An administrator named Leslie Vance. She worked directly under Hale for 4 years before resigning last summer.
What does she have? Emails, memos, internal reports showing Hale knew about staffing shortages, equipment failures, and safety violations, but buried them to maintain revenue projections. She kept copies of everything. Sarah sat down slowly. That's evidence of institutional negligence. It's more than that. It's proof of conscious disregard for patient safety, which opens the door to punitive damages. This isn't just about your termination anymore, Sarah. This is about the entire hospital. Will she testify? She wants to, but she's scared. Hale made her sign a non-disclosure agreement when she left. Violating it could mean legal consequences. Can she? Vanessa smiled grimly. NDAs don't cover illegal activity. If Hale was engaged in fraud or endangering patients, she's legally protected for whistleblowing. But it'll take courage. Set up a meeting. Let me talk to her. They met at a coffee shop near the state line. Leslie Vance was 41, nervous energy radiating off her in waves. She ordered tea she never drank and kept checking the door like someone might burst through. I shouldn't be here, Leslie said immediately. If Hale finds out, he's going to find out eventually, Sarah said quietly. The question is whether you help stop him or spend the rest of your life knowing you could have. Leslie's hands shook around her cup. You don't understand what he's capable of. I understand he's counting on you being too afraid to act. That's how he survived this long. I have kids. A mortgage. He could what? Sue you for telling the truth? Let him try. The public attention alone would destroy him. Sarah leaned forward. You kept those documents for a reason. You knew someday they'd matter. That day is now. Leslie stared at her tea. I watched him scream at a pregnant nurse until she had a panic attack. Watched him manipulate infection rate reports to avoid state scrutiny. Watched him prioritize profit over people every single day. Her voice cracked. I told myself I'd speak up when the right moment came, but I was too scared. You're here now, because I can't keep living with this. Leslie finally looked up. What do you need? Vanessa slid a legal pad across the table. Everything. Dates, documents, witnesses. We'll protect you as much as legally possible, but I won't lie. This will be painful. Leslie picked up the pen. Let's burn it down, she said. Over the next 4 days, the case exploded. Leslie's documents corroborated everything. Vanessa filed an amended complaint adding institutional negligence and fraud. Local news ran daily updates. Anonymous staff members continued coming forward, and Marcus Hale made his first public statement. Sarah watched it on television Thursday evening. Hale stood outside Rivermont General, flanked by lawyers speaking directly to cameras. These allegations are categorically false. Disgruntled former employees making baseless claims. Rivermont General maintains the highest standards of care and workplace safety. We will vigorously defend ourselves against this frivolous lawsuit. He looked confident, controlled, like a man who'd weathered storms before. But Sarah noticed something in his eyes. Fear. The next morning, Vanessa called with unexpected news. Hale's lawyers want to meet, off the record, settlement discussion. Sarah went still. Already? They're feeling the pressure. Media coverage is killing them. Staff morale is in free fall. The board of directors is asking questions. They want this contained before it gets worse. What kind of settlement? We don't know yet. That's what the meeting's for. But Sarah, Vanessa's tone turned serious. Settlements mean confidentiality agreements. You take money, you sign away your right to talk about this publicly. The truth gets buried. So we refuse. Maybe, but we should at least hear what they're offering. Information is leverage. They met at a neutral law office Friday afternoon. Gerald Roth represented Hale, silver hair, expensive suit, eyes like a predator sizing up prey. Let's dispense with the pleasantries, Roth said. My client is willing to offer a financial settlement to resolve this matter quickly. Ms. Reeves returns all documents, signs a non-disclosure agreement, and withdraws her lawsuit. In exchange, she receives compensation for her troubles. How much compensation? Vanessa asked. $75,000. Sarah almost laughed. That's your offer? Roth's expression didn't change. It's a generous offer considering your employment lasted less than a month. It's an insult considering your client terrorized an entire hospital for 6 years. Alleged terrorization, which you'll have difficulty proving in court. Vanessa leaned forward. We have 7 witnesses. documentation spanning years, a former administrator with internal emails proving your client knowingly endangered patients. You're not offering settlement because you think we'll lose, Mr. Roth. You're offering it because you know you will. Roth smiled. Then let's be honest, you're a labor attorney with a solo practice. I represent one of the most connected men in this city. I have resources you can't match. I'll bury you in discovery. Drag this out for 3 years. Bankrupt your client with fees before we ever see a courtroom. He looked at Sarah. Take the money. Walk away. Live your life. Sarah held his gaze. No. You're making a mistake. I've made plenty. This isn't one. Roth gathered his papers. Then we'll see you in court. And Ms. Reeves, by the time I'm done, you'll wish you'd taken $75,000. They walked out. In the parking lot, Vanessa turned to Sarah. That was either very brave or very stupid. You said that before. Still true. But Vanessa was smiling. He's scared, really scared. $75,000 is nothing for a defendant like Hale. He was testing whether you'd fold cheap. Now he knows you won't. What happens next? Now he fights dirty. Vanessa was right. The attacks started that weekend. Anonymous social media posts appeared claiming Sarah had been dishonorably discharged from the military, that she'd been fired from previous hospitals, that the lobby cardiac arrest had been staged. All lies, but repeated enough that people started questioning. Then Monday morning, Sarah woke to find reporters camped outside her apartment building. 3 vehicles, multiple cameras. She called Vanessa. Don't talk to them, Vanessa said immediately. Not one word. This is Roth's doing. He's trying to control the narrative through media pressure. They're harassing my neighbors. I'll file for a restraining order. Just stay inside today. Sarah spent the day trapped in her apartment, watching news coverage spiral. Local stations ran segments questioning her credibility. Hale's PR team released a statement calling her mentally unstable and vengeful. Her phone buzzed with the text from an unknown number. You should have taken the money. What comes next is on you. Sarah blocked it. Then Margaret called. Sarah, it's getting bad here. Hale's holding mandatory staff meetings, making everyone sign new NDAs. Anyone who refuses is being put on disciplinary watch. She sounded exhausted. People are terrified. Some are reconsidering whether to cooperate with your case. Are you? No. But I'm one person. We need something bigger, something that shows we can actually win this. Sarah closed her eyes. I know. That night, she couldn't sleep again. Lay in bed staring at shadows on the ceiling, questioning every choice that led here. Maybe Roth was right. Maybe she should have taken the money, walked away. Then her phone buzzed. Text from Jennifer. Turn on channel 7, now. Sarah grabbed her laptop, pulled up the local news live stream. The anchor was mid-sentence. Breaking development in the lawsuit against Rivermont General Hospital. We've obtained internal documents showing CEO Marcus Hale allegedly falsified financial reports and manipulated patient safety data. Our investigation, Sarah's breath caught. Someone had leaked Leslie's documents directly to the media. The segment continued. Detailed breakdowns of Hale's misconduct, interviews with former staff, images of internal memos proving Hale knew about dangerous conditions and ignored them. It was devastating. Sarah's phone started ringing. Vanessa. Did you see it? Yes, who leaked? I don't know, wasn't us, but whoever did just changed everything. Vanessa sounded almost gleeful. This isn't a lawsuit anymore, Sarah. This is a scandal, and it's national by morning. She was right. By Tuesday, major networks picked up the story. Healthcare trade publications ran exposes. Social media erupted with hashtags demanding Hale's resignation. Rivermont General's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Wednesday afternoon, Vanessa called with news Sarah had been waiting for. The board suspended Hale, pending investigation. He's been removed from hospital operations effective immediately. Sarah felt her knees go weak. It's over? Not even close. But he's off the throne. That's step 1. Vanessa paused. There's more. 3 board members reached out privately. They want to discuss institutional reform. They're terrified of liability exposure, and they know Hale created this mess. They want to settle before this gets worse. What kind of settlement? The real kind, not $75,000 and a gag order. Full accountability, policy changes. Your reinstatement if you want it. Sarah thought about Rivermont General. The staff still trapped there. The patient's still at risk. I don't want reinstatement. I want justice. Then let's finish this. But Marcus Hale wasn't done. Thursday night, Sarah's apartment building fire alarm went off at 2 a.m. She evacuated with the other residents, standing in the cold parking lot in sweatpants and a jacket. Fire trucks arrived. Searched the building. No fire. False alarm. But when Sarah got back to her apartment, she found her door slightly ajar. She called 911. Police came, searched the apartment. Nothing taken. Nothing obviously disturbed, except her laptop was open, and the file containing all her case notes had been accessed. The officer took a report. Probably just kids, pulled the alarm, tried random doors. But Sarah knew better. Someone wanted her to know they could reach her whenever they wanted. She called Vanessa at 2:30 a.m.
I need to move, tonight. What happened? Sarah explained. Vanessa swore quietly. Pack. I'll send someone. You're staying at a secure location until this is over. Vanessa, he's escalating. That means we're winning, but it also means you're in real danger. Vanessa's voice was steel. I'm not losing a client to intimidation tactics. Pack. Now. Sarah spent the next 4 hours in a hotel room Vanessa's firm arranged. Private, secure, anonymous. She barely slept.
Friday morning, the final blow landed. Vanessa called at 7 a.m. The state medical board just announced an investigation into Rivermont General, patient safety violations, falsified records, financial fraud, the whole thing. She paused. And Sarah? They're filing criminal charges against Marcus Hale. Fraud, reckless endangerment, obstruction. Sarah sat up in the unfamiliar hotel bed. Criminal charges. He's looking at prison time if convicted. This isn't civil court anymore. This is the state saying he crossed the line from unethical into illegal. Vanessa's voice filled with quiet satisfaction. You did this. You stood up when everyone else was too afraid, and now the system's finally working. Sarah should have felt triumph, relief, victory. Instead, she felt exhausted. What now? Now we wait for the board's settlement offer. Should come Monday. They'll want this contained before the criminal trial starts. Vanessa paused. How are you holding up? I'm fine. You're not. But you will be. They hung up. Sarah sat in the hotel room watching morning light creep through the curtains. Somewhere across town, Marcus Hale was waking up to his empire collapsing, his reputation destroyed, his future uncertain. She should have felt satisfaction. Instead, she just felt tired. Her phone buzzed one more time. Text from Margaret. We heard about the charges, everyone's talking, some are scared, but most are just relieved. Thank you. Sarah stared at the message. Then someone knocked on her hotel room door, 3 sharp raps that made her pulse spike and her body tense as a voice called through wood that she knew but couldn't place. Sarah moved to the door silently, years of training kicking in before conscious thought. She checked the peephole. Jennifer stood in the hallway, looking over her shoulder every few seconds. Sarah opened the door. How did you find me? Jennifer pushed inside, breathing hard. Vanessa's paralegal is my cousin. She told me where you were staying. She turned, face pale. We need to talk, now. Sarah locked the door behind her. What happened? Hale showed up at the hospital last night, after midnight. Security tried to stop him, but he has keys to everything. Jennifer's words tumbled out fast. He went to his office, was there for maybe 20 minutes, then left with 2 boxes of files. What kind of files? Nobody knows. But this morning, Victoria Green called an emergency HR meeting. Told everyone that any staff member who cooperates with your lawsuit will be terminated immediately for violating confidentiality agreements. Then she started listing names. Sarah went cold. Whose names? Mine, Margaret's, 4 others who've been talking to Vanessa. She didn't say how she knew, just that she had proof we'd been conspiring against the institution. Jennifer's voice shook. Sarah, they're going after everyone, systematically. They can't fire you for talking to lawyers. That's retaliation. They're claiming we stole confidential documents and shared them with unauthorized parties. They have emails, time-stamped communications. I don't know how, but they have everything. Sarah's mind raced. The break-in at her apartment, her laptop accessed. They hadn't just been sending a message. They'd been collecting evidence of their own. Where are you supposed to be right now? Work. But I called in sick. Jennifer sat on the edge of the hotel bed. Half the staff is terrified. The other half thinks we're traitors. Hale's people are spreading rumors that we fabricated evidence, that we're getting paid by rival hospitals to destroy Rivermont's reputation.
None of that's true.
Doesn't matter. People believe what they want to believe, and right now they want to believe this will blow over if they just keep their heads down. Sarah's phone rang. Vanessa. Put it on speaker, Jennifer said. Sarah did. Vanessa, Jennifer's here. She says Hale's going after witnesses.
I know. I just got served with a motion to compel. They want the names of everyone who's provided statements. They're claiming witness tampering.
Vanessa's tone was clipped, professional, but Sarah heard the tension underneath. This is Roth's endgame. If he can intimidate enough witnesses to recant, the case falls apart. Can he get the names? Not easily, but he'll drag it out. Make it expensive. Make it painful. Vanessa paused. I need you both to listen carefully. Do not go back to Rivermont General. Do not communicate with anyone there except through me. And do not, under any circumstances, let Hale's people know where you're staying. Jennifer looked at Sarah. I can't just hide. I have bills, rent. I need my job. Your job isn't worth your safety, Vanessa said flatly. Hale's already broken into Sarah's apartment. He's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. After Vanessa hung up, Jennifer sat silent for a long moment. I can't believe it came to this, she finally said. I just wanted to be a nurse, help people, not this. None of us wanted this. But you're the one who started it. Jennifer's voice wasn't accusing, just tired. The rest of us were surviving. You decided to fight. Someone had to. Did they? Jennifer looked at her. Maybe we could have just kept our heads down, waited for Hale to retire or move on, not risked everything. Sarah thought about the soldiers she'd served with, the ones who'd died because someone in command made a bad call and nobody spoke up, the ones who'd survived because somebody finally did. He wasn't going to retire, Sarah said quietly. Men like Hale don't walk away from power. They have to be removed. Jennifer left an hour later, headed to her sister's place 2 towns over. Sarah spent the rest of the morning on the phone with Vanessa, building contingency plans for every possible move Roth could make. By afternoon, the situation deteriorated further. 2 of the 7 witnesses recanted their statements. Both cited misunderstandings and pressure from outside parties. Both refused to elaborate. Vanessa called them directly. Neither answered. Roth got to them, Vanessa said. Money or threats or both. We're down to 5. Is 5 enough? For a civil case? Maybe. For criminal charges? The state needs a stronger foundation. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Your military service, your discharge paperwork, is it all clean? Honorable discharge, no disciplinary issues. Why? Because Roth's going to dig into it. Looking for anything to discredit you. Affairs, substance abuse, mental health issues, conduct violations. Anything. There's nothing. You're sure? Sarah thought back. 8 years, 3 deployments, moments she wasn't proud of, decisions made under fire, patients she couldn't save, nights she'd self-medicated with alcohol because sleep wouldn't come otherwise, but nothing officially documented. I'm sure. Good, because he's going to try anyway. That evening, Sarah's phone buzzed with a news alert. Former Rivermont General nurse's military record under scrutiny. She opened the article. Anonymous sources claiming Sarah had been involved in a classified incident during her 2nd deployment, suggesting PTSD, questioning her stability. All lies, but detailed enough to sound plausible. She called Vanessa again. I saw it, Vanessa said before Sarah could speak. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let me handle it. How? I'm reaching out to the Department of Defense, getting your full service record released publicly. Every commendation, every evaluation, every deployment report. We'll bury his lies in documentation. That'll take time. We have time. The criminal case moves slower than civil court, and the board settlement meeting is Monday. If we can get institutional accountability before Roth destroys your reputation completely, we win. Sarah wasn't sure winning felt possible anymore. She spent Saturday in the hotel room watching news coverage spiral. National outlets picked up the story. Healthcare reform advocates held press conferences. Politicians issued statements. Everyone had an opinion about Rivermont General and Marcus Hale and the nurse who dared to fight back. Nobody asked Sarah what she actually wanted. Sunday morning, Margaret called. "Margaret, I'm out." Her voice was flat. "They fired me yesterday, escorted out by security. 36 years of service, and they gave me 20 minutes to clean out my locker." Sarah closed her eyes. "Margaret, I'm so sorry." "Don't be. I knew what I was signing up for." Margaret laughed bitterly. "You know what the worst part is? Half the staff watched it happen and didn't say a word. Too scared, too defeated. I don't even blame them anymore." "What will you do?" "Lawyer up. File my own wrongful termination suit. Join the pile." She paused. "But Sarah, I need you to know something. What you started, it's bigger than you now. Other hospitals are watching. Other staff are talking. This isn't just about Rivermont anymore." After they hung up, Sarah stood at the hotel window watching traffic move below. Normal people living normal lives. None of them knew they were one bad boss away from the same nightmare. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Ms. Reeves." Male voice, professional. "This is Detective Aaron Mills with Kingsport Police Department. I'm investigating the break-in at your apartment. Do you have time to answer a few questions?" Sarah sat down slowly. "Yes. We pulled security footage from your building. There's a gap, 30 minutes, where the cameras were disabled. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." He paused. "We also found something interesting. The fire alarm that went off? It was triggered manually from the 3rd floor. Your apartment's on the 2nd. So it was a distraction. That's our working theory. Create chaos, slip in during the evacuation, access your apartment. Very organized." Another pause. "Ms. Reeves, are you involved in any ongoing legal disputes?" Sarah almost laughed. "You could say that. Would you say the other party in this dispute has the resources to hire professional operatives?" "Absolutely. Then I'd recommend taking this seriously. File for a restraining order. Vary your routine. Consider private security if you can afford it." His tone softened slightly. "Between us, whoever did this wasn't looking to hurt you. Not yet. This was reconnaissance, gathering information, but that can change fast." After the call ended, Sarah sat in the silent hotel room. Detective Mills was right. This had been professional, calculated, not random violence, but strategic intimidation. Hale was playing a longer game than she'd anticipated. Monday morning arrived with rain hammering the hotel windows. Sarah dressed in the same blazer and slacks she'd worn for the courthouse filing. Vanessa picked her up at 8. "The board's bringing their full legal team," Vanessa said as they drove. 6 lawyers, outside counsel from a major firm. "They're taking this seriously." "What do they want?" "Officially, to discuss institutional reform and potential resolution. Unofficially, to make this go away before shareholders start asking questions." Vanessa glanced at her. "You ready?" "Do I have a choice?" "You always have a choice. You can walk away right now. Take whatever settlement they offer. Live your life." Sarah watched the rain blur the windshield. "If I do that, Hale wins." "Hale's already lost. Criminal charges don't disappear. He's going to trial regardless. But the hospital survives. The culture survives. They fire him, hire someone new, and nothing actually changes." Vanessa pulled into the law office parking lot. "So what do you want?" Sarah thought about Danya's slap, Jennifer's tears, Margaret's firing, Dr. Hendricks leaving medicine because he couldn't stomach what it had become. "I want them to admit what happened, publicly. No confidentiality agreements, no sealed records, full transparency." She looked at Vanessa. "And I want structural changes, new leadership, independent oversight, patient advocates, real accountability." Vanessa smiled slightly. "That's not a settlement, that's a revolution." "Then let's start a revolution." The conference room was corporate minimalism, glass walls, leather chairs, a table that could seat 20. Rivermont General's legal team occupied one side, perfectly arranged like chess pieces. Sarah and Vanessa sat across from them. Lead counsel was a woman in her 50s named Patricia Morse. Silver hair, sharp eyes. The kind of lawyer who billed $1,000 an hour and earned every cent.
Ms. Reeves, Ms. Cole, thank you for meeting with us. Morse opened a leather portfolio.
Let's be direct. Rivermont General's board of directors recognizes that mistakes were made under Marcus Hale's leadership. We're prepared to offer a comprehensive settlement that addresses your concerns while allowing the institution to move forward. What kind of settlement? Vanessa asked. Morse slid a document across the table. $750,000, full benefits restoration, a glowing reference letter, and a public statement acknowledging that Ms. Reeves' termination was unjustified. Sarah scanned the document, 50 pages of legal language, confidentiality clauses on every other page. You're offering me money to be quiet, she said. We're offering you compensation for genuine grievances, Morse corrected, along with institutional commitments to policy reform, new harassment reporting systems, mandatory leadership training, independent audits of workplace culture. Behind closed doors, where nobody can verify it actually happens.
Morse's expression didn't change. Ms. Reeves, I understand you've been through a difficult experience, but continuing this litigation helps no one. It's expensive, exhausting, and the outcome is uncertain. This settlement gives you financial security and the satisfaction of knowing changes will be made. Sarah looked at Vanessa, who gave a slight nod. Your call. Who wrote the public statement? Sarah asked. Morse pulled out another sheet. We have a draft prepared. Sarah read it. Carefully worded. Technically accurate. Completely bloodless. Rivermont General Hospital acknowledges that the termination of Sarah Reeves was procedurally flawed. We regret any distress this caused and are committed to ensuring fair treatment of all staff members moving forward. This says nothing, Sarah said. It doesn't mention Hale, doesn't mention abuse, doesn't acknowledge 6 years of terror. It acknowledges what can be legally substantiated, Morse replied. Anything more specific creates liability exposure. So you want to pay me off, release a corporate non-apology, and pretend nothing happened? We want to resolve this professionally. Sarah set the document down. No. Morse blinked. I'm sorry? I said no. Keep your money. Keep your reference letter. I want real accountability. One of the other lawyers leaned forward, younger man, expensive suit, irritation barely concealed. Ms. Reeves, you're walking away from $750,000 because the public statement isn't worded to your satisfaction? That's absurd. What's absurd, Sarah said quietly, is thinking I went through all this for money. Morse held up a hand, silencing her colleague. What do you want, Ms. Reeves? Full transparency, every investigation finding made public, every policy change documented and independently verified, a patient advocate position with real authority, and most importantly, a public acknowledgement that Marcus Hale created a culture of systematic abuse and that the board failed to stop it. The room went silent. Finally, Morse spoke. That's impossible. The liability exposure alone is already there, Vanessa interrupted. Criminal charges have been filed. The state investigation is ongoing. You can't put this genie back in the bottle. The only question is whether you control the narrative through honest disclosure or let it control you through discovery. Morse conferred quietly with her team, whispered conversation, glances at Sarah, more whispering. Finally, she turned back. We need to consult with our client. Can you give us an hour? Sarah and Vanessa waited in a smaller conference room. Coffee nobody drank. Magazines nobody read. The clock ticked loudly. You know they might walk away, Vanessa said. Decide to fight this in court rather than give you what you want. I know. And you're okay with that? Sarah thought about the hotel room, the break-in, the death threats, the witnesses who'd recanted, everything she'd already lost. I'm okay with fighting, she said. 90 minutes later, Morse returned alone. The board has authorized me to make a counteroffer. She sat down, hands folded. We'll agree to most of your transparency demands. Investigation findings will be released with appropriate redactions for patient privacy. Policy changes will be documented and subject to quarterly independent audits. A patient advocate position will be created with reporting authority directly to the board. And the public acknowledgement? Sarah asked. Morse hesitated. We can acknowledge that significant leadership failures occurred under Marcus Hale's tenure, which created an environment where patient safety and staff well-being were compromised. That's still corporate speak.
It's as far as we can go without exposing the institution to massive damages and civil suits from former patients and staff. Morse leaned forward. Ms. Reeves, I'm going to be frank with you. What you're asking for, a full admission of systematic abuse, would bankrupt this hospital. Hundreds of employees would lose their jobs. Thousands of patients would lose access to care. The community would lose a critical healthcare resource. Is that really the outcome you want? Sarah felt the weight of it. All those jobs, all those patients, all those people whose lives would be disrupted because she refused to compromise. But she also thought about the next Marcus Hale, the next hospital where silence was safer than speaking up, the next nurse who'd watch abuse happen and do nothing because they'd learned that was how survival worked. How many other hospitals has Hale applied to? Sarah asked suddenly. Morse frowned. I don't understand the relevance. Answer the question. Since his suspension, has he applied elsewhere? That's confidential employment information. Which means yes. Sarah looked at Vanessa. He's already planning his next position, another hospital, another staff, and if we let him disappear quietly, he does this somewhere else. Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. You want to make him unhireable. I want to make sure what happened at Rivermont can't happen again anywhere. Morse shook her head. We can't control Marcus Hale's future employment opportunities. That's beyond the scope of this settlement. But you can document his misconduct thoroughly enough that no hospital board would dare hire him. You can make his reign at Rivermont so publicly toxic that he becomes a liability no institution will touch. That's vindictive. That's justice. Sarah stood. Here's my final offer. Full transparency on everything. A public statement that specifically names Hale and details his pattern of abuse. Documentation so thorough that any hospital considering him can see exactly what they'd be bringing in, and the structural changes we already discussed. And in exchange, I drop my personal lawsuit, keep the hospital out of it. Let the state handle the criminal case. Sarah paused. Save your institution, destroy his career, take it or leave it. Morse stared at her. You're willing to give up $750,000? I never wanted the money. I wanted him stopped. Another consultation, another hour waiting. Sarah's phone buzzed repeatedly. News alerts, messages from people she barely knew, the world watching to see how this resolved. Finally, Morse returned with the full legal team. The board accepts your terms, she said, with one condition. The public statement will be released in coordination with the state's criminal investigation findings. We won't undermine their case by releasing information prematurely. Sarah looked at Vanessa, who nodded. That's reasonable. Then we have an agreement. Morse extended her hand. Sarah shook it. The grip was firm, professional. But Sarah noticed Morse's hand was trembling slightly. They finalized the settlement details over the next 3 hours. Paperwork, signatures, addendums, and clauses. By the time Sarah walked out of the law office, it was dark outside. Vanessa drove her back to the hotel in silence. Finally, halfway there, she spoke. You just gave up $750,000. I know. Most people would have taken it. I'm not most people. Vanessa pulled into the hotel parking lot. No, you're really not. She turned to face Sarah. For what it's worth, that was the most ethically hardcore thing I've seen in 20 years of practice. Stupid, but hardcore. Sarah smiled tiredly. Still stupid? Incredibly. But I respect it. Back in the hotel room, Sarah collapsed onto the bed. Her phone showed 43 unread messages. She ignored them all. She'd done it, forced accountability, protected future staff, made sure Hale's legacy would follow him forever. But she felt hollow. Victory should have tasted better. Her phone rang. Jennifer. I saw the news, Jennifer said. Settlement reached. Details forthcoming. That's you? Yeah. Did you get what you wanted? Sarah thought about it. I got what was needed. That's not the same thing. I know. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Margaret and I are meeting tomorrow. Some of the other fired staff, too. We're talking about organizing, maybe forming a coalition to push for changes at other hospitals. Would you want to be involved? Sarah looked at the hotel room ceiling, thought about going back to nursing, going back to normal. Realized she had no idea what normal even meant anymore. Can I think about it? Of course. Just... Sarah? Thank you for not backing down. After they hung up, Sarah tried to sleep. Couldn't. Too much adrenaline. Too much unresolved energy. Around midnight, her phone buzzed with an email. Subject line: "You made a mistake. No sender name. Anonymous address." Sarah's finger hovered over delete. Then she opened it. "You think you won. You think destroying my reputation changes anything, but you're wrong. I built Rivermont from nothing. I made it profitable when it was failing. I saved hundreds of jobs, and you destroyed all of it because your feelings got hurt. You want to know the truth? People like you don't survive in healthcare. It's not about kindness. It's about efficiency. Metrics. Results. The system I built worked. The system you're creating will collapse within a year. But you'll never see it. Because by the time you realize what you've done, I'll be somewhere else, building something new, and you'll still be nobody. Enjoy your victory. It's temporary." M.H. Sarah read it twice, then forwarded it to Vanessa with a note. Evidence of continued harassment. File with the restraining order motion. Then she blocked the sender. But sleep didn't come any easier, because part of her wondered if Hale was right. If she'd destroyed something functional in pursuit of something idealistic. If the hospital would actually improve or just find a new tyrant to replace the old one. The doubt crept in like cold water. She got out of bed, paced the small hotel room, tried to think through everything that had happened, every decision, every consequence. Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from an unknown number. "Turn on the news. Channel 7, now." Sarah grabbed the remote. Channel 7 was mid-segment. The anchor looked grim. Breaking news from Rivermont General Hospital. We're getting reports of a significant incident involving former CEO Marcus Hale. Details are still emerging, but sources tell us Hale was taken into custody less than an hour ago following what witnesses describe as an altercation at the hospital. We're working to confirm. The segment cut to shaky cell phone footage, hospital parking lot, security lights. Hale being escorted by 2 police officers, his hands behind his back. He was shouting something. The audio was unclear, but his face was twisted with rage. The anchor continued. We're told this arrest is separate from the pending criminal charges related to fraud and patient safety violations. Again, details are limited, but we'll update you as more information becomes available. Sarah sat frozen on the edge of the bed. Her phone rang. Vanessa. "Are you watching?" Vanessa asked. "What happened?" "Near as I can tell, Hale went back to Rivermont tonight. Got into the building somehow, started destroying files in his office. Security tried to stop him, and he assaulted one of the guards." Vanessa's voice was tight. "They're adding assault charges to his case. Sarah, the man completely lost it." Sarah thought about the email. The rage in those words. The entitlement. "He's spiraling," she said quietly. "He's done. After tonight, no judge is letting him anywhere near that hospital. And any jury is going to see a man who couldn't handle losing control." Vanessa paused. "This is good for us. Reinforces everything we've been saying." But Sarah felt no satisfaction, just a strange, heavy sadness. She'd wanted justice, not destruction. But maybe they were the same thing. She ended the call and sat in the dark hotel room, watching the news coverage repeat. Same footage, same speculation, same image of Marcus Hale being led away in handcuffs. She wondered what he'd been thinking. Going back to the hospital in the middle of the night, destroying evidence that was already redundant, making himself look exactly like the unstable tyrant everyone now believed he was. Maybe he'd believed his own myth, that he was untouchable, that the rules didn't apply, or maybe he'd just been desperate. Sarah turned off the TV, tried again to sleep. This time, she almost managed it. Until her phone rang at 3:17 a.m., Detective Mills. "Ms. Reeves, I apologize for the hour, but I need to inform you of a development in your break-in case." Sarah sat up, heart suddenly pounding. "What development?" "We arrested Marcus Hale earlier tonight on separate charges. During processing, we found a keycard to your apartment building in his wallet, along with photographs of your vehicle and license plate." Sarah's mouth went dry. "He was surveilling you personally," Mills continued, "not through hired operatives, him. We also found evidence he'd been monitoring your communications. Phone records show he called a private investigator firm multiple times over the past week. We're getting a warrant for their records now." "He did the break-in himself?" We're still investigating, but it's looking that way. Mills paused. Miss Reeves, I need you to understand something. This man is obsessed with you. The photographs, the surveillance, the escalating behavior, this goes beyond professional retaliation. You need protection. He's in custody. For now, bail hearings tomorrow morning. His lawyers are good. There's a chance he walks pending trial. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying if he makes bail, you need to be somewhere he can't find you, somewhere secure, with people around you. Mills's voice was steady but serious. I've seen cases like this. When men in power face consequences, some accept it. Others fixate on the person they blame. Hale's in the second category. After the call ended, Sarah sat in the dark hotel room processing. Marcus Hale hadn't hired someone to break into her apartment. He'd done it himself. Personally. Driven by rage and obsession and the inability to accept that a woman he'd dismissed as weak had destroyed his empire. She thought about the email. You'll still be nobody. He didn't believe it. That was the problem. He knew exactly who she was now, and he couldn't stand it. Sarah called Vanessa again despite the hour. I know, Vanessa said immediately. Mills called me too. I'm already making arrangements. You're moving locations tomorrow. Somewhere remote. And I'm hiring private security. Vanessa, I can't afford pro bono. Consider it my contribution to making sure you live to see justice actually served. Vanessa's tone left no room for argument. Pack. Be ready to move by 7 a.m. Sarah hung up and stood at the hotel window, watching the empty street below. Somewhere out there, Marcus Hale sat in a jail cell, planning his next move. And Sarah realized this wasn't over. The lawsuit was settled. The criminal charges were filed. The hospital was reforming. But the man at the center of it all wasn't done fighting. She thought about her military training, the lessons about enemies and tactics in the dangerous window when a defeated opponent becomes most desperate. She'd been focused on institutional justice. She should have been watching the individual threat. Her phone buzzed one final time before dawn. Text from unknown number. Bail posted. He's out. Sarah was already dressed when Vanessa arrived at 6:45. 2 bags packed, laptop secured. Every trace of her presence erased from the hotel room. You look like you're deploying, Vanessa said from the doorway. Old habits. Sarah grabbed her jacket. Where are we going? A friend's cabin, 2 hours north, off the grid, no digital footprint. Vanessa handed her a burner phone. Use this for the next 72 hours. Your regular phone stays off. They drove in silence through pre-dawn streets. Sarah watched the city disappear in the rearview mirror, replaced by highway and eventually forest. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road, small, weathered, surrounded by pine trees. A man waited on the porch, late 50s, military bearing, gray beard. Sarah Reeves, meet Tom Brennan, former Secret Service. He'll be your security detail. Brennan extended a hand. His grip was solid, assessing. Ma'am, let's get you inside and go over protocols. The cabin's interior was sparse but functional. Brennan showed her the security system, cameras on all approaches, motion sensors, reinforced doors. Then he handed her a panic button the size of a car key fob. Press this, I respond within 30 seconds. Don't hesitate. He looked at her directly. Ms. Cole briefed me on the situation. Marcus Hale posted bail 3 hours ago, made some statements to press outside the jail, got heated when reporters asked about you. What kind of statements? Brennan pulled out his phone, played a video. Hale stood on the courthouse steps, flanked by Gerald Roth. His suit was rumpled. His face carried dark circles and barely controlled rage. This entire situation is a calculated attack by a disgruntled employee with an agenda, Hale said into the cameras. Sarah Reeves fabricated allegations, manipulated witnesses, and destroyed a hospital's reputation because she couldn't handle professional standards. I will be vindicated completely, and when I am, I will pursue defamation charges to the fullest extent of the law. A reporter shouted a question. Mr. Hale, what about the assault charges from last night? Hale's expression darkened. That guard put his hands on me first. I was defending myself while attempting to retrieve my personal property from an office I built. The charges are absurd and will be dropped. Roth stepped forward. My client has cooperated fully with authorities. The bail conditions are reasonable, and he will comply with all requirements. We look forward to clearing his name in court. The video ended. Sarah set down the phone. He believes every word he's saying. Narcissists usually do, Brennan said. Makes them predictable in some ways, dangerous in others. He crossed his arms. Here's how this works. You stay inside unless I'm with you. No walks, no trips to town, no social media. Hale's people will be looking for you. We don't make it easy. After Vanessa left, Sarah sat in the cabin's main room staring at wood-paneled walls. The isolation felt familiar, like deployment, like waiting for orders, like the space between action and consequence. Her burner phone buzzed. Vanessa. The state prosecutor called. They want to meet with you tomorrow. Go over your testimony for the criminal trial. Can you make it to Kingsport by noon? Brennan will have to drive me. He knows. I already cleared it. Vanessa paused. Sarah, there's something else. The investigator looking into Hale's surveillance found text messages on his phone between him and Victoria Green, planning your termination weeks before it happened, coordinating witness intimidation, discussing ways to discredit you legally. Sarah absorbed this. So it wasn't reactive, it was premeditated. Completely. They built the case against you before you even started working there. The moment you transferred to Rivermont, you were already on their list. Why? Near as we can tell, because County General gave you a strong recommendation, Hale saw that as a threat. Someone competent he couldn't control. Vanessa's voice hardened. These texts are prosecution gold. They prove conspiracy. They show intent. Victoria Green is about to be charged as an accomplice. Does she know? Not yet. Charges are being filed this afternoon. Sarah thought about Victoria in the termination meeting, the manila folder, the manufactured violations, all planned, all deliberate. How many people did they do this to? She asked quietly. We're finding out, but based on the texts, at least a dozen over the past 3 years. Hale would identify threats. Victoria would build cases. They'd terminate and bury it. You're just the first one who fought back. After the call, Sarah sat in the quiet cabin. Sunlight filtered through the trees outside. Birds called to each other, peaceful, normal. She felt anything but. That night, Brennan cooked simple pasta. They ate in silence. Then he asked, You saw combat? 3 tours, mostly field hospitals, some forward operations. Ever kill anyone? Sarah looked at him. The question was direct, professional. No. I saved lives, didn't take them. Harder job, Brennan said. Killing's easy when you're scared. Saving someone under fire takes real control. He cleared the dishes. Hale's probably never faced real consequences in his life. Men like that don't know how to lose, so they don't stop fighting even when it's over. You need to be ready for that. I am. Maybe. But ready means understanding he might do something stupid, desperate. And when that happens, you don't hesitate. Brennan met her eyes. You were military. You understand rules of engagement. This is the same. You have permission to protect yourself. Don't forget that. Sarah nodded slowly. The next morning, Brennan drove her to Kingsport. They varied the route, checked mirrors constantly, parked 3 blocks from the prosecutor's office. Brennan walked her inside, cleared the building's security, then waited in the lobby. Assistant District Attorney Rachel Peralta was 42, sharp-featured, carrying a litigation bag that looked like it weighed 20 pounds. Ms. Reeves, thank you for coming. She gestured to a conference room. We've got about 90 minutes to prep your testimony. The grand jury convenes next week. I need you comfortable with the evidence and your role in it. They spent 2 hours going through timelines, incidents, documentation. Peralta was thorough, occasionally stopping to clarify details or push for more specific descriptions. The defense will try to paint you as vindictive, Peralta said. Roth's strategy will be attacking your credibility, suggesting you had personal animosity toward Hale from day one. How do we counter that? With the truth. I had no opinion of him until I watched him slap a coworker. Good. Simple. Direct. Peralta made a note. What about your termination? How did you feel when it happened? Sarah thought back to that day. Walking out of Rivermont, sitting in her car. The mix of anger and exhaustion and grim determination. Unsurprised, she said. Men like Hale don't tolerate being challenged. That's perfect. Use exactly that language in testimony. Peralta closed her notebook. One more thing. Hale's been making public statements, calling you a liar. Threatening defamation suits. Does that intimidate you? No. Why not? Because I know what actually happened. He can lie all he wants. The evidence doesn't. Peralta smiled slightly. Jury's going to like you. On the drive back to the cabin, Sarah's burner phone rang. Margaret. I just heard about Victoria Green. She got arrested an hour ago at the hospital in front of everyone. Margaret's voice carried satisfaction. Security walked her out in handcuffs. Staff was recording it on their phones. It's already online. Sarah felt something shift. How's the hospital handling it? Barely. Half the administration's in panic mode. The other half is pretending they had no idea what Hale and Victoria were doing. Interim CEO held a meeting, promised transparency, promised reform. Nobody believes him yet, but at least he's saying the right words. What about the staff who were fired? Some are filing wrongful termination suits. Others just want their jobs back. Me? Margaret laughed. I'm done with Rivermont, but I'm not done with fixing what's broken. Jennifer and I are meeting with a labor organizer next week, talking about forming a healthcare workers advocacy group. We've got interest from staff at 3 other hospitals. After they hung up, Sarah stared out at the passing forest. The fight was spreading. What started at Rivermont was becoming something larger. She wasn't sure how she felt about that. The cabin felt smaller that evening. Sarah paced, checked her laptop. Read news coverage of Victoria Green's arrest. The story was everywhere. Not just local anymore, but national. Healthcare reform advocates held press conferences. Politicians issued statements. Everyone wanted to be part of the narrative. Brennan watched her pace. You're restless. I'm not built for sitting still. Nobody is. But sitting still keeps you alive right now. He stood. Come on, I'll show you the perimeter. At least you'll know what I'm protecting. They walked the property as evening settled in. Brennan pointed out sight lines, approach vectors, places someone could hide. Military thinking applied to civilian problems. You really think he'd come here? Sarah asked. I think he's desperate, humiliated, and facing prison. That combination makes people irrational. Brennan stopped at the tree line. But he's also not stupid. Coming after you directly means more charges, more evidence of instability. His lawyers won't let him. Unless he stops listening to his lawyers. Then I shoot him, Brennan said simply. And we both sleep fine afterward. That night, Sarah lay in the cabin's small bedroom, listening to forest sounds, wind in trees, distant animal calls. The kind of quiet that should have been peaceful, but felt heavy instead. Her burner phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. Press conference tomorrow. Hospital board releasing investigation findings. Want you there? Sarah stared at the message. She could stay hidden in the cabin, let the story play out without her, fade into background while institutions handled the aftermath. Or she could show up. Put a face to the fight. Make it impossible to ignore. She typed back, What time? The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a downtown hotel. Sarah spent the morning preparing, not physically, but mentally, reviewing what she'd say if asked, how she'd handle hostile questions, the balance between honest and strategic. Brennan drove her to the hotel early. They entered through a service entrance, avoiding the reporters already gathering in the lobby. Vanessa met them in a back hallway. The board's releasing a 60-page report, Vanessa said, handing Sarah a copy. Every incident documented, every policy failure outlined, every decision Hale made that endangered patients or staff. It's comprehensive. Sarah flipped through it. Detailed, damning, the kind of documentation that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. They're also announcing his permanent termination, Vanessa continued. Forfeiture of all severance and benefits. Recommendation to the state medical board that he be barred from any healthcare administrative role permanently. That's everything I asked for. It's more. They're going scorched earth, probably because they realized the alternative was getting buried in lawsuits from everyone Hale ever hurt. Vanessa checked her watch. You don't have to speak if you don't want to, but if you do, keep it short. Let the report speak for itself. The hotel ballroom was packed. Reporters, camera crews, hospital staff who'd managed to get inside. Sarah recognized faces from Rivermont. Jennifer, Margaret, Dr. Hendricks, others she'd worked with briefly. The hospital board sat at a long table on stage. Interim CEO, David Walsh, stood at the podium. Mid-50s, gray suit, the careful expression of someone trying to rebuild trust. "Thank you all for coming," Walsh began. "Today, Rivermont General Hospital releases the findings of an independent investigation into workplace conditions and administrative practices under former CEO Marcus Hale. He outlined the report methodically. Financial misconduct, falsified safety records, systematic harassment, patient care compromised for profit margins. The list went on and on. Sarah watched the reporters taking notes, the cameras recording, the hospital staff in the audience watching their institution's failures laid bare publicly. "Marcus Hale's employment has been terminated permanently," Walsh continued. "All benefits and compensation forfeited. We have recommended to relevant licensing authorities that he be barred from healthcare administration. Additionally, Rivermont General will implement comprehensive reforms including independent oversight, transparent reporting systems, and a patient advocate position with direct board authority." He paused, looking at the crowd. "I want to be clear. What happened at this institution was unacceptable. It should never have been allowed to continue as long as it did, and it took extraordinary courage from one individual to force us to face these failures." Walsh looked directly at Sarah. "Ms. Reeves, would you like to say anything?" Sarah hadn't planned to speak, but standing in that ballroom, watching staff who'd been terrorized for years finally see accountability, she understood this moment mattered. She walked to the podium. "I'm not a hero," she said into the microphone. "I'm just someone who couldn't watch abuse happen and stay silent. But I wasn't alone. Every person who came forward with their story, every witness who risked their job to testify, every staff member who kept showing up despite fear, they're the reason we're here." She looked at the cameras. "What happened at Rivermont happens at hospitals everywhere. Across this country, people in power believe they're untouchable. That fear equals respect. That silence equals consent. But it doesn't. And when enough people decide to speak up together, even the most powerful fall." Sarah stepped back from the podium. The room was silent for a beat. Then someone in the audience started clapping. Then another. Then the entire ballroom erupted in applause. Sarah saw Jennifer crying, Margaret nodding, Dr. Hendricks standing with his arms crossed, looking satisfied. The press conference ended with questions Sarah didn't stay to hear. Brennan escorted her out the service entrance before reporters could corner her for individual interviews. In the car, Sarah watched the city pass by. "Feel good?" Brennan asked. "It feels like something ended," she said. "Not good, not bad, just ended." But it hadn't, not completely. That evening, back at the cabin, Sarah's burner phone rang. Detective Mills. "Ms. Reeves, I need to inform you of a situation. Marcus Hale violated his bail conditions this afternoon. He was ordered to stay away from Rivermont General. We have security footage of him outside the hospital at 3 p.m., watching, taking photos." Sarah's stomach tightened. "Where is he now?" "Unknown. He left before we could respond. His ankle monitor is active, but he's not at his residence. We've got units looking, but..." Mills paused. "I'm telling you this because his behavior is escalating. The man just watched a press conference destroy his career and then immediately went to the hospital. That's not rational thinking." "You think he's coming after me?" "I think you should assume he might. Stay where you are. Stay with Brennan. We'll find him." After the call, Brennan did a full security sweep, checked every camera, every sensor, every lock. "We're secure," he said finally. "But we're going to elevated protocol tonight. I'll be awake. You sleep if you can." Sarah tried. Lay in bed watching shadows move across the ceiling, listening to forest sounds that now seemed threatening instead of peaceful. Around midnight, she gave up. Walked into the main room where Brennan sat by the window, watching the property through night vision binoculars. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking away. "Waiting's worse than fighting." "Usually is." He handed her the binoculars. "Nothing moving out there except deer and raccoons. If Hale comes, we'll see him long before he reaches the cabin." Sarah looked through the binoculars. Green-tinted forest, clear sight lines, no threats visible. "You ever deal with something like this before?" she asked. "In Secret Service? Stalkers? Obsessed individuals?" "All the time. Difference is I had a team and unlimited resources." Brennan took the binoculars back. "Here, it's just me. But I'm good at my job, and you're not exactly helpless." "What do you mean?" "You've got combat medical training. You've functioned under fire. You've kept people alive in impossible situations. That takes a specific kind of mental discipline. He glanced at her. If it comes to it, you'll do what needs doing. Sarah thought about that, about what needs doing might mean if Marcus Hale showed up at this cabin looking for revenge. She'd spent 8 years saving lives. She wasn't sure she could take one, but she also knew she wouldn't let him hurt her without fighting back. The night passed slowly. Dawn arrived cold and gray. Brennan finally stepped away from the window to make coffee. Sarah's burner phone rang. Vanessa. They found him. Where? His lawyer's office. Apparently he showed up around 4 a.m., demanding Roth do something. File emergency motions, stop the hospital's report, get him back in control. Vanessa sounded exhausted. Roth called the police, said Hale was unhinged. They took him into custody for bail violation. Sarah felt tension drain from her shoulders. So it's over. For now. Bail's revoked. He's remanded pending trial. Judge said he's clearly a threat to community safety and witness intimidation. He's not getting out this time. After they hung up, Sarah sat at the cabin's small table drinking coffee while Brennan monitored the news on his laptop. Statement from Roth, Brennan said, reading. Says he's withdrawing as Hale's counsel due to irreconcilable differences. That's lawyer speak for, my client won't listen, and I don't want to be associated with this disaster. So Hale's alone. Looks like it. Brennan closed the laptop. Man built his entire identity on power and control. Now he's got neither. He's in jail. His career's destroyed. His reputation's toxic. Everyone he thought was loyal abandoned him. He looked at Sarah. You did that. You and people like you took everything from him by refusing to stay silent. Sarah thought about the CEO who'd walked through Rivermont like he owned it, who'd slapped Danya without consequence, who'd fired staff for challenging him, who'd believed he was untouchable. And she thought about the man in custody now, abandoned by his lawyer, facing criminal charges, watching his empire collapse on national television. I didn't want to destroy him, she said quietly. I just wanted him to stop. Sometimes those are the same thing. The next morning, Vanessa called with an update Sarah hadn't expected. The state's offering Hale a plea deal, 15 years. No parole eligibility for 8. In exchange, he pleads guilty to all counts and cooperates with ongoing investigations into Victoria Green and others. Will he take it? Roth says no. Even from outside, he knows Hale won't admit guilt. The man would rather go to trial and risk 30 years than acknowledge he did anything wrong. Vanessa paused. Which means you're going to testify. Grand jury next week, then trial in 3 months if he doesn't change his mind. I'll be ready. I know you will. Vanessa's tone softened. How are you holding up? Really? Sarah looked around the cabin. The isolation, the security measures, the life on pause while justice slowly worked. I'm tired, she admitted, of fighting, of hiding, of this being my entire existence. It won't be forever. The trial happens. He gets convicted. You move on. And if he doesn't get convicted, silence. Then we keep fighting. But Sarah, that won't happen. The evidence is overwhelming. The witnesses are credible. The jury will see what everyone else saw, a man who abused power and hurt people. They'll convict. After the call, Sarah packed her bags. Brennan had cleared her to return to Kingsport. Hale was in custody. The immediate threat had passed. Driving back to the city felt surreal, like emerging from deployment. The civilian world looked the same, but felt different. Sarah had changed. The city hadn't. Vanessa had arranged a new apartment for her. Secure building, different neighborhood, fresh start. Sarah spent 3 days settling in, buying furniture, establishing routines, trying to remember what normal life looked like. Then the grand jury convened. Sarah testified for 90 minutes. Rachel Peralta walked her through every incident, every detail, every moment where Marcus Hale had chosen cruelty over compassion. The grand jury indicted him on all counts: fraud, reckless endangerment, assault, conspiracy. Witness tampering, the charges stacked up like fallen dominoes. Bail remained revoked. Trial date set for November. Sarah walked out of the courthouse into afternoon sunlight. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras tracked her movement. She kept walking until she reached Vanessa's car. How do you feel? Vanessa asked as they drove away. Like I testified against someone who doesn't exist anymore. The Marcus Hale in that courtroom wasn't the CEO who terrorized Rivermont. He was just broken. Good. He should be broken after what he did.
Sarah looked out the window. I thought I'd feel more satisfied, like justice would taste better. Justice doesn't taste like anything, Vanessa said. It's just the end of injustice. That's all it ever is. October passed in preparation. Peralta needed Sarah for trial prep, going over testimony again and again, anticipating defense strategies, building the narrative that would convince a jury.
Haley got a new lawyer, public defender named Marcus Chen, who looked tired before the case even started, the kind of assignment nobody wanted, defending the indefensible. Sarah watched pre-trial motions from the gallery. Hale sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his posture rigid. He never looked at her, never acknowledged her presence, as if ignoring her might somehow undo everything she'd set in motion. Victoria Green's trial was scheduled separately. She'd taken a plea deal, 5 years, testimony against Hale in exchange for reduced charges. Her lawyer had convinced her that cooperation was survival. The week before trial, Sarah received a letter. Prison envelope. No return name, but she recognized the handwriting from internal memos. She almost threw it away unopened. Then curiosity won. Ms. Reeves, I'm writing this because my lawyer says it's a bad idea, which means it's probably the only honest thing I've done in months. You destroyed my life, my career, my reputation, everything I built over 20 years, gone because you couldn't follow simple instructions. But here's what keeps me awake at night in this cell. You were right. Not about everything. Not about me being some kind of monster, but about Rivermont. About the fear. About people suffering because I prioritized metrics over humanity. I told myself I was saving the hospital, keeping it profitable so jobs existed, so patients had somewhere to go. I believed that justified everything else. The shortcuts, the pressure, the intimidation. I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that somewhere in the wreckage of my life, I finally understood what you were fighting for. It won't change anything. The trial will happen. I'll be convicted. I'll spend years in prison knowing I earned every day of it. But you should know, you won something more than a lawsuit. You proved that one person can make institutions remember they're supposed to serve people, not power. I wish I'd learned that before meeting you. Marcus Hale. Sarah read the letter 3 times, then filed it with her trial preparation documents. She didn't know if she believed him, didn't know if it mattered, but she kept the letter. Trial began on a Monday in November. The courtroom was packed, media, hospital staff, victims, observers from other healthcare institutions watching to see if accountability could actually work. Rachel Peralta delivered an opening statement that laid out 6 years of systematic abuse. Gerald Roth's replacement stammered through a defense about misunderstandings and vindictive employees. The jury looked skeptical from minute 1. Sarah testified on day 3. 4 hours on the stand. Peralta walked her through everything. The defense tried attacking her credibility, suggesting she'd fabricated evidence, implying she had ulterior motives. Sarah stayed calm, answered every question directly, let the evidence speak. When she stepped down, she saw Jennifer in the gallery. Margaret, Dr. Hendricks, Danya, all the people who'd been brave enough to come forward. She saw Marcus Hale at the defense table, staring at his hands. The trial lasted 2 weeks, witness after witness, document after document. The prosecution built a case so thorough that even Hale's lawyer seemed resigned to losing. On the final day, Peralta showed the jury the photograph from Hale's wallet, the surveillance photo of Sarah's car, the stalking, the obsession. This is what happens when powerful men can't accept consequences, Peralta said to the jury. They don't reflect. They don't reform. They hunt the people who dared to speak truth. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Sarah sat in the gallery feeling nothing at first. Then slowly, something like relief. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and zero tolerance for abuse of power, looked at Marcus Hale for a long moment before speaking. Mr. Hale, you held a position of extraordinary authority. People trusted you with their careers, their livelihoods, their health. And you weaponized that trust to build an empire of fear. She paused. The court sentences you to 23 years in state prison, No parole eligibility for 12 years. Hales showed no reaction, just nodded once, accepted it like a diagnosis. As bailiffs led him away, he looked back at the gallery one final time. His eyes found Sarah's. She couldn't read his expression. Regret? Anger? Acceptance? Then he was gone. Sarah walked out of the courthouse into cold November air. Reporters swarmed, but Vanessa's security cleared a path to the car. "It's over," Vanessa said as they drove away. "Actually, over." Sarah nodded, but her hands were shaking. That evening, her phone rang. Real phone, not the burner. Jennifer. "Did you watch the news?" "No? Why?" 3 more hospitals just announced independent investigations into their workplace cultures, all citing what happened at Rivermont as the catalyst. Jennifer's voice carried something Sarah hadn't heard before. Hope. "Sarah, we started something. This is spreading." After they hung up, Sarah sat in her new apartment watching the sunset over Kingsport. The city looked different now. Or maybe she was the one who'd changed. Her laptop showed news coverage. Hale's sentencing. Victoria Green's separate conviction. Rivermont General's ongoing reforms. And underneath those headlines, dozens of smaller stories. Healthcare workers organizing. Hospital boards announcing policy changes. Staff members finding courage to report abuse they'd been suffering in silence. One person speaking up had given permission to thousands of others. Sarah closed the laptop. She thought about going back to nursing, finding a hospital where she could just do the work she'd trained for without fighting institutional corruption. But she also thought about the calls she'd been getting from labor organizers, patient advocacy groups, healthcare reform committees. Everyone wanted her involved. Everyone saw her as a symbol of what speaking up could achieve. She wasn't sure she wanted to be a symbol. She just wanted to help people. Her phone buzzed one more time, text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it, then saw the message.
"Ms. Reeves, this is Leslie Vance. I'm testifying at another hospital investigation next month. Different institution, same problems. Would you be willing to consult? We need someone who's been through this." Sarah stared at the message. She could say no. Walk away. Let others carry the fight forward. Or she could accept that what she'd started at Rivermont was bigger than one hospital, one CEO, one victory. She typed back, "Send me the details." Then she stood, walked to her apartment window, and looked out at the city below, where somewhere, in hospitals across the region, night shift nurses were clocking in to face the same fears and pressures and abuse that had driven her to act. And she realized her fight hadn't ended with Marcus Hale's conviction. It had only just begun. Sarah met Leslie Vance at a coffee shop in a town she'd never heard of before. Millbrook, population 12,000, home to Regional Medical Center, where staff turnover had hit 40% in 18 months. Leslie looked different than she had at their first meeting. Steadier, less haunted. She slid a folder across the table. "CEO's name is Richard Polk. Been there 9 years. Same pattern as Hale. Public charm, private terror. Staff's too scared to organize. 3 people tried filing complaints with HR in the past year. All 3 were terminated within weeks." Sarah opened the folder. Familiar story, different names. What do they need from me? Someone who's been through it. Someone who can tell them fighting back actually works. Leslie leaned forward. "There's a nurse there, early 30s. Her name's Amanda Torres. Polk humiliated her in front of patients last month, called her incompetent, threatened her license. She wants to report him, but she's terrified." "She should be terrified. Look what happened to me." "Exactly. You survived it. You won." Leslie's voice was steady. "That's what they need to see. Not some abstract concept of justice. A real person who fought and didn't get destroyed." Sarah thought about the hotel room, the break-in, the months of fear and isolation and uncertainty. "I almost did get destroyed. But you didn't. And now Marcus Hale's in prison, and you're here helping the next person." Leslie paused. "That matters, Sarah, more than you realize." They drove to Regional Medical Center that afternoon. The building looked different from Rivermont, but the atmosphere felt identical. That particular tension Sarah recognized immediately. Staff moving quickly, eyes down, voices quiet. Amanda Torres met them in a parking garage. She was young, Hispanic, with tired eyes that kept scanning the surroundings. "Thank you for coming," Amanda said. Her hand shook slightly.
I didn't know who else to talk to. Tell me what happened. Amanda did. The public humiliation, the impossible workload, the constant threats, the patient care that suffered because everyone was too afraid to make decisions. Sarah listened, heard her own story echoed back, realized this wasn't isolated to Rivermont or Richard Polk or Marcus Hale. This was structural, systemic, everywhere. I can't afford to lose this job, Amanda said. I'm supporting my parents, but I also can't keep working like this. I had a panic attack last week, locked myself in the supply closet for 20 minutes because I couldn't breathe. Sarah thought about Jennifer in the stairwell, Danya after the slap, Margaret after 16 years of slowly breaking down. You have documentation? Sarah asked. Some. Text messages from other staff. A few emails where Polk contradicted medical decisions for financial reasons. Nothing official. That's more than I had starting out. Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm going to give you Vanessa Cole's number. She's the attorney who handled my case. Tell her I sent you. She'll know what to do. And then what? Then you decide if you're ready to fight. Because that's what this is. A fight. It's going to be hard. You'll lose sleep. You'll second guess yourself. People will call you a liar. Your colleagues will distance themselves. Some days you'll wonder if it's worth it. Amanda's face paled. You're not making a great sales pitch. I'm being honest. Sarah met her eyes. But here's the other side. When it's over, when you've survived it, you'll know you're the kind of person who stands up, who doesn't let fear win, and that knowledge stays with you forever. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. Then she took Vanessa's number. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. Driving back to Kingsport, Leslie glanced at Sarah. You could have told her it would be easy, given her hope. False hope doesn't help anyone. She needs to know what she's signing up for. Will she do it? Sarah thought about Amanda's hands shaking, her eyes constantly checking for threats, the panic attack in the supply closet. I don't know, but she knows it's possible now. That's something. Over the next month, Sarah received 7 more calls. Nurses from different hospitals, different cities, same stories. She met with each one, listened, shared Vanessa's contact information, never pushed, just offered what she'd learned. 3 of them filed complaints, 2 lawsuits were initiated, 1 hospital preemptively suspended their CEO pending investigation. The movement was spreading. Jennifer called in early December with news. We did it. The Healthcare Workers Advocacy Coalition is officially registered. Nonprofit status, board of directors, everything. That's incredible. Margaret's chairing it. Dr. Hendricks is our medical advisor. We've got interest from staff at 14 hospitals across 3 states. Jennifer's excitement was palpable. We're planning a conference in February. Would you speak about what you learned fighting Hale? Sarah hesitated. Public speaking meant visibility, becoming a symbol again rather than just a person. But she also remembered standing in that ballroom at Rivermont's press conference, watching faces light up with possibility. I'll speak. Thank you. Seriously, you started this. We're just carrying it forward. After the call, Sarah sat in her apartment thinking about trajectory, how one decision to not stay silent had cascaded into a regional movement, how fighting her own fight had somehow given permission to hundreds of others. She wasn't sure she wanted that responsibility. But she'd learned in the military that you don't choose when leadership finds you. You just decide what to do with it when it does. Christmas approached. Sarah's first holiday season since leaving the Army that didn't feel hollow. Vanessa invited her to dinner with her family. Jennifer organized a small gathering for the Rivermont staff who testified. Margaret sent a card with a handwritten note. You gave us back our voices. That's the greatest gift I've ever received. On Christmas Eve, Sarah visited Danya Martinez at her new job, a small clinic 30 miles outside Kingsport. Danya looked healthier, less haunted. She hugged Sarah without hesitation. I heard you're doing consulting work now, Danya said as they walked through the clinic, helping other hospitals. Trying to. I wanted to apologize for when I hung up on you after I got fired. You were scared. I understood. I was more than scared. I was angry at you for making me visible, for forcing me to be brave when I just wanted to survive. Danya stopped walking. But watching what you did, watching you actually win, it changed something. Made me realize survival isn't living. It's just not dying. What made you change your mind? You did. Every time I saw you on the news, still fighting, I kept thinking, if she can do this after everything, maybe I can too. Danya smiled. So I testified. And after Hale got convicted, I realized I didn't want to work somewhere out of fear anymore. I wanted to work somewhere because I believed in it. She gestured around the clinic, small but clean, staff laughing at the nurses' station, patients waiting comfortably. It's not perfect, but it's honest. And I don't go home every day feeling like I compromised something essential. Sarah felt something warm in her chest, not pride exactly, more like recognition that pain could transform into purpose. January brought the anniversary of Sarah's hiring at Rivermont General. 1 year. She marked it privately. No celebration, just acknowledgement of how much had changed in 12 months. Rivermont itself was different too. Sarah visited one afternoon, walking through the lobby where she'd saved that cardiac arrest patient. New leadership, new policies, staff who made eye contact and smiled. She ran into the older nurse who'd warned her that first day, the one who'd said Hale couldn't be fought. "You're famous now," the nurse said, not unkindly. "People still talk about you here." "I hope they talk about the changes, not me. They talk about both, about how one person actually made a difference." She paused. "I voted against the union when we had the chance, years ago. Thought it would make things worse. I was wrong. Fear makes you wrong about a lot of things." Sarah nodded slowly. "Fear makes sense. It keeps you safe." "No, it keeps you quiet. There's a difference." The nurse walked away, leaving Sarah standing in the lobby. She looked up at the fluorescent lights, same ones that had hummed relentlessly during Hale's reign. Same building, same structure. But the weight felt different, lighter. February arrived with the Healthcare Workers Advocacy Coalition Conference. 400 attendees, nurses, doctors, administrators, advocates. People from across the region gathering to share stories and strategies. Sarah spoke on the final day, standing at a podium in front of hundreds of faces. She'd prepared remarks, written them out carefully, then discarded them when she reached the microphone. "I'm not here to tell you fighting back is easy," she said. "It's not. It cost me sleep, safety, and months of my life. But staying silent would have cost more. It would have cost who I am." She looked out at the audience. Every person in this room knows a Marcus Hale, a boss who rules through fear, a system that protects power over people. And you've probably been told the same thing I was: don't make waves, keep your head down, survive. Sarah paused. But survival isn't enough. Not when patients are endangered, not when colleagues are suffering, not when the institution you serve has forgotten why it exists. She leaned into the microphone. "I'm not going to tell you to risk everything. That's your choice. But I will tell you this. When you do speak up, you won't be alone. Because every person who fights creates space for the next person. Every victory proves change is possible. Every time someone refuses to accept abuse as normal, the system gets a little bit weaker." The room was silent. Marcus Hale thought he was untouchable. So did Victoria Green. So do hundreds of administrators across healthcare who've learned that fear works. But they're wrong. Fear only works as long as people stay isolated. The moment we connect, the moment we realize we're fighting the same fight, their power evaporates. Sarah stepped back from the podium. The silence held for another beat. Then the entire ballroom stood and applauded. Sarah saw tears, saw recognition, saw people finding courage in numbers. She saw what she'd started. Not just a lawsuit or conviction, but a fundamental shift in what healthcare workers believed was possible. After the conference, Sarah found a quiet corner. Her phone showed dozens of messages. Interview requests, speaking invitations, consulting opportunities. Margaret found her. "You okay?" Overwhelmed. "Welcome to accidentally becoming a movement leader." Margaret sat beside her. "Listen, I know this isn't what you signed up for. You just wanted to be a nurse, help people, not become a symbol." "Yeah, but symbols matter. They give people something to aim for, and right now you're showing everyone that one person really can challenge power and survive." Margaret squeezed her shoulder. "You don't have to carry this forever, but maybe for now, let it mean something." That evening, Sarah walked through downtown Kingsport. The city felt familiar now, home in a way she hadn't experienced since leaving the military. Her phone rang. Rachel Peralta. "I've got news. Marcus Hale's transfer went through. He's officially in state prison, maximum security. Won't be eligible for parole until 2036. Sarah stopped walking. How's he doing? You want the truth? Not well. He's isolated himself. Refuses most visitors. His ex-wife filed for divorce last month. His kids won't talk to him. The man has nothing. Sarah should have felt satisfaction, vindication, the architect of so much suffering getting exactly what he deserved. Instead, she just felt tired. Good, she said, because it seemed like the response Peralta expected. Sarah, you don't sound convinced.
I am. I'm just trying to figure out if destroying him was the same as fixing the problem. Peralta was quiet. Then, you didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. You just made sure everyone saw it. There's a difference. After the call, Sarah sat on a bench watching people pass by. Normal lives, normal struggles. None of them knew that institutions they trusted were held together by silence and fear. But more people were learning every day.
March brought warmer weather and a job offer Sarah hadn't expected. The state health department wanted her to consult on workplace culture initiatives, review hospital policies, train administrators on recognizing and preventing abuse. You'd essentially be institutionalizing everything you learned fighting Hale, the director explained during the interview, making sure what happened at Rivermont can't happen elsewhere. Sarah considered it. Regular salary, benefits, legitimacy. She could stop living case to case, consultation to consultation. She could help change the system from inside. I'll take it. She started in April. The work was bureaucratic and slow. Policy review, committee meetings, institutional resistance disguised as procedural concerns. But gradually, changes took root. Mandatory reporting systems, independent workplace advocates, quarterly culture audits, protections for whistleblowers, small shifts, but institutional. One afternoon, Sarah received a letter. Prison envelope, Marcus Hale. She almost threw it away, then remembered his last letter. The admission, the recognition. This one was shorter. Ms. Reeves, I heard you're working with the state now, implementing reforms. I want you to know I think that's appropriate. You understand what breaks systems better than people who've never experienced it. I've had time to think here, a lot of time, about the nurse I slapped, the staff I terrorized, the patients whose care suffered because I prioritized metrics over humanity. The list is long. I don't expect forgiveness, but I've started writing down everything I did wrong. Every decision, every moment I chose power over people. It's 100 pages so far. My lawyer says it could be used against me in civil suits. I don't care. If it helps even one person recognize these patterns in themselves before it's too late, it's worth it. You were right about me, about everything. I hope knowing that brings you some peace. M.H. Sarah filed the letter with the others. She didn't respond. Didn't feel the need to. Marcus Hale's journey toward accountability was his own. She'd done her part by making sure he faced consequences. Summer arrived, and with it, Amanda Torres' case reached settlement. Regional Medical Center fired Richard Polk, implemented reforms, paid Amanda full compensation. Another CEO removed. Another institution forced to change. Amanda called Sarah afterward. I couldn't have done this without seeing you do it first. Just knowing it was possible made all the difference. You did the hard part. I just showed you the path existed.
That's what leaders do, isn't it? Go first so others know where to step. After they hung up, Sarah thought about that. She'd never wanted to be a leader, never aspired to anything beyond helping people and doing her job well. But sometimes leadership finds you in the middle of doing what needs doing. 1 year after Marcus Hale's conviction, Rivermont General held a memorial ceremony. Not for people who died, for the culture that had. Sarah attended, stood in the lobby where she'd first defied Hale, listened to the new CEO speak about institutional growth and renewed purpose. Then they unveiled a plaque, in recognition of those who spoke truth to power and demanded accountability. May this institution always remember that healthcare exists to serve the vulnerable, not the powerful. Sarah's name was listed first, then Margaret's, Jennifer's, Dr. Hendricks, Danya's, Leslie Vance's. Everyone who'd been brave enough to fight. The crowd applauded. Sarah felt Jennifer grab her hand. Margaret stood on her other side. We did this,
Margaret whispered. All of us. Together. After the ceremony, Sarah walked through the hospital, visited the nursing station where she'd first seen Danya get slapped, the lobby where she'd saved a cardiac arrest patient, the path security had escorted her down after termination. All of it looked the same. All of it felt different. A young nurse approached her, early 20s, nervous. "You're Sarah Reeves, right?" "I am. I just started here. This is my first nursing job." The young woman smiled. "They told us your story during orientation about how you changed this place. I wanted to say thank you for making it safe for people like me." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "Just don't stay silent if you see something wrong." "I won't. I promise." The young nurse walked away. Sarah watched her go, eager, hopeful, believing healthcare could be what it was supposed to be. Maybe that was the real victory. Not Hale's conviction or Rivermont's reforms, but the next generation entering the field believing speaking up was possible. That evening, Sarah met Vanessa for dinner. They'd maintained the friendship beyond attorney-client relationship, found they actually liked each other. "You're quieter than usual," Vanessa observed. "I'm thinking about what comes next." "You just started the state job." "I know, but it's policy work. Important, but distant. I miss direct patient care, miss nursing." Vanessa set down her wine glass. "So go back to it." "After everything? After becoming this symbol? You're only a symbol if you let yourself be. You're also a nurse who happens to have experience fighting institutional abuse. Those things can coexist." Vanessa leaned forward. "Sarah, you didn't fight Hale so you could spend the rest of your life fighting other people's Hales. You fought him so healthcare could be what it's supposed to be. That includes you getting to practice nursing without constantly battling corruption." Sarah thought about that, about the young nurse at Rivermont, about Amanda Torres, about the hundreds of healthcare workers finding courage because someone had gone first. "Maybe you're right. I'm always right. I'm a lawyer." Sarah laughed. First real laugh in months. She submitted her resignation from the state position in September. 2 months' notice. Time to transition her projects to others. Time to remember what drew her to nursing in the first place. By November, she'd accepted a position at County General, the hospital that had recommended her to Rivermont, that had believed in her from the start. First day felt like coming home. Familiar rhythms. Patients who needed care. Staff who functioned as a team without fear poisoning every interaction. During lunch, another nurse asked about her past year. "I heard you took down some CEO at another hospital. That true?" Sarah considered how to answer, then decided on simple truth. "I reported abuse. The system did the rest." "Must have taken guts." "It took being tired of watching people suffer." The nurse nodded. "That's usually when things change, when someone gets tired enough to push back." Sarah returned to the floor, checked patient charts, administered medications, helped a doctor with a procedure, normal nursing work, the work she'd trained for, the work she loved. No drama, no cameras, no reporters asking about institutional reform. Just healthcare practiced the way it was supposed to be. That evening, Jennifer texted, "Board meeting tomorrow, coalition's expanding to 6 states. Margaret wants to know if you'll join the advisory council." Sarah thought about it. She could say no. Focus entirely on nursing. Let others carry the advocacy work forward. But she also knew her experience mattered. That sitting on an advisory council meant helping others avoid the mistakes she'd made, learn from the victories she'd won. She could do both. Nurse during the day, advisor when needed, balance instead of consumption. She texted back, "I'm in, but limited capacity. My first priority is patients." Jennifer responded immediately. "Understood. That's the whole point. We need people who remember why this matters." December arrived with the first anniversary of speaking at the coalition conference. Sarah marked it by visiting Danya at her clinic. They had coffee and talked about normal things, families, hobbies, the mundane details of life that had been swallowed by crisis for so long. "Do you have nightmares about it?" Danya asked suddenly. "About Hale? The trial? All of it?" Sarah considered lying, then decided against it. "Sometimes. Not as often anymore. Mostly, I dream about the firefight during my second deployment, about soldiers I couldn't save. The Rivermont stuff doesn't haunt me the same way." "Because you won?" "Because I survived. Winning just means the survival mattered." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Danya spoke again. I got engaged last month. Sarah smiled. Congratulations. I almost didn't. Kept thinking about how broken I felt after everything, how damaged. But my fiancé said something that stuck with me. Danya looked at Sarah. He said you're not broken from fighting back. You're just different. And different isn't less. Sarah felt that truth settle in her chest. She wasn't the same person who'd walked into Rivermont General 15 months ago. That Sarah had been quieter, more willing to believe institutions worked, less aware of her own strength. This Sarah knew what she was capable of. Knew fear was temporary, but regret lasted forever. Knew standing up might cost everything, but staying silent cost more. Different, not less. The year ended quietly. Sarah worked her shifts, attended coalition meetings when needed, lived a life that balanced purpose with peace. On New Year's Eve, she received one final letter. This one from the State Corrections Department. Marcus Hale had been transferred to a lower security facility. Good behavior. Participation in rehabilitation programs. Enrollment in a counseling program for abusive behavior. The letter included a note from his counselor. Mr. Hale has made significant progress in recognizing patterns that led to his criminal behavior. He specifically credits your actions with forcing him to confront truths he'd spent his career avoiding. While this doesn't excuse his behavior, it does suggest genuine attempts at rehabilitation. Sarah set the letter aside. She didn't need Hale's rehabilitation for closure, didn't need his acknowledgement for vindication. His journey was separate from hers now. She'd fought him and won. That was enough. Midnight arrived. Fireworks outside her window. The city celebrating another year survived. Sarah thought about the path that had led here, the slap she'd witnessed, the cardiac arrest, the termination, the lawsuit, the criminal trial, all of it cascading from one decision to not stay silent. She thought about the nurses who'd called her for advice, the hospitals implementing reforms, the advocacy coalition spreading across 6 states, the young nurse at Rivermont who'd promised not to stay silent. One decision, one voice, one person refusing to accept that fear was stronger than truth. And everything changed. Sarah's phone buzzed. Group text from Margaret, Jennifer, and Dr. Hendricks. Happy New Year. Thank you for going first. She smiled, typed back. Thank you for coming with me. Then she set down her phone and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, a nurse was facing abuse and wondering if speaking up was possible. A patient was receiving compromised care because staff were too afraid to challenge bad decisions. An administrator was building an empire on fear because nobody had stopped them yet. But also somewhere out there, people were organizing, reporting, fighting back, using the tools and strategies and courage that Sarah's fight had helped make visible. The work wasn't finished. It never would be. Institutional change was generational, slow, frustrating. But it was happening. And Sarah had learned something essential during her 15 months of fighting. You don't change systems by being perfect. You change them by being persistent, by showing up every day and doing what needs doing even when you're terrified, by believing that one person speaking truth actually matters. Because it does. Every time. Without exception. Sarah turned from the window. Tomorrow she'd go to work, care for patients, be the nurse she'd trained to become. Live the life she'd fought to reclaim. But she'd also answer calls from people who needed guidance. She'd sit on advisory councils. She'd tell her story when it helped others find their own courage. Not because she was special. Not because she was fearless. Not because she was stronger than anyone else. But because she'd learned that speaking up, really truly speaking up when it costs something, is how ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things. And she'd learned that once you do it once, you can never pretend silence is safety again. That was the real transformation. Not Hale's conviction or Rivermont's reforms or the coalition's expansion, but the internal shift from believing power was permanent to knowing it was fragile, from accepting abuse as inevitable to recognizing it as a choice, from surviving to living. Sarah's reflection in the window showed someone different than the woman who'd started at Rivermont 15 months earlier. Older, tired, scarred, but also unbroken. And that made all the difference. Outside, the city continued celebrating. Inside, Sarah made a promise to herself, not to keep fighting forever, but to never forget what fighting had taught her. That institutions serve people, not the other way around. That silence protects the powerful, not the vulnerable. That one voice speaking truth gives permission to thousands more. And that the difference between someone who accepts abuse and someone who stops it isn't courage, it's just the decision to try. Sarah Reeves had made that decision, had survived the consequences, had changed not just her own life, but the lives of countless others who'd watched her fight and learned it was possible. She wasn't a hero. Heroes were people without fear. She was just someone who'd been afraid and spoken anyway. And in the end, that was the only thing that ever changed anything.